Chapter 544. There was a reason for Li Shan's anger. Wu Kedi's family was indeed like what he said, searching for spiritual herbs or treasures everywhere. If Silver Knife had the level 25 equipment, he would have been able to exchange it with Wu Kedi for some good elixirs. However, if Silver Knife really did that, then wouldn't that level 25 equipment have no fate with him? Thinking up to this point, Li Mingshan could no longer hold himself back. He hurriedly shouted, "Wu Kedi, what nonsense are you spouting? The level 25 equipment that Silver Knife obtained must be returned to the Godly Knife sect. How could he secretly exchange it with you here?" Hearing Li Shan's words, Wu Kedi sneered. "Li Shan, are you trying to go back on your words? We already agreed that as long as Yin Dao agreed to exchange with me, you wouldn't stop him. How could you go back on your words in such a short time?" Speaking up to this point, Wu Kedi paused for a moment before continuing, "Li Shan, do you have some ulterior motive?" Hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Shan angrily said, "Wu Kedi, you are the one who is talking nonsense. Yin Dao is our Godly Knife sect's first. If he wants to exchange it for elixirs, it will naturally be handled by our Godly Knife sect. How could we let an outsider like you do it?" Wu Kedi turned his head to look at Yin Dao and said with a smile, "Yin Dao, don't listen to Li Shan's nonsense. Our Wu family has a lot of treasures. If you are willing, as long as you tell me what you want, I will definitely find it for you." Speaking up to this point, Wu Kedi paused for a moment before continuing, "Brother Yin Dao, tell me, what treasure do you want?" Hearing Wu Kedi's words, Yin Dao's heart suddenly moved. He understood the meaning behind Wu Kedi's words. Many of the Godly Knife sect's treasures were provided by the Wu family. If he directly exchanged with the Wu family, he should be able to get something better. Thinking up to this point, Yin Dao was about to speak when Li Shan impatiently spoke up again. "Yin Dao, if you take this equipment back to the Godly Knife sect to exchange for treasures, maybe the sect leader will be happy and accept you as a disciple. However, if you secretly exchange equipment with the Wu clan, once the sect master of the Divine Saber sect finds out, he will definitely be furious, and it will be detrimental to your future. Therefore, I think it's best for you to bring this equipment back to the Godly Knife sect." Speaking up to this point, Li Shan paused for a moment before continuing, "Yin Dao, even if you can exchange for better equipment with the Wu family, you won't be able to obtain more benefits. You will only be able to obtain a treasure." Before Li Shan could finish his words, he was interrupted by Wu Kedi. "Yin Dao, you have to think clearly. If you really want to exchange for elixirs, trading with us is really the best choice." Li Mingshan said angrily, "No, Yin Dao is a disciple of the Godly Knife martial school. He can't trade with outsiders." Wu Kedi sneered, "Why not? Didn't you, Li Mingshan, just say yes? Why are you going back on your words now?" Li Mingshan turned his head to look at Wu Kedi and said coldly, "Wu Kedi, it's not that I'm going back on my words, it's just that you've gone too far." Speaking up to this point, Li Mingshan paused for a moment before continuing, "Just now you said to exchange equipment, but look, it's changed to elixirs. You've violated the agreement between us. How can you say that I'm going back on my words?" Wu Kedi sneered, "Li Mingshan, since you said to exchange equipment, then that's fine." Speaking up to this point, Wu Kedi turned his head to look at Yin Dao and said with a smile, "Brother Yin Dao, as long as you agree to exchange equipment, I can give you elixirs. That should be fine, right?" Hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Mingshan immediately became furious. "Wu Kedi, you've gone too far." Wu Kedi shook his head. "I'm just following our agreement. I'll use a level 10 equipment to exchange for Brother Yin Dao's level 25 equipment. To express my gratitude, I'll give him some elixirs. Is there anything wrong with that?" Li Mingshan was enraged by Wu Kedi's words, but he couldn't refute it. He could only stand there and stare fiercely at Wu Kedi. Seeing this, Wu Kedi felt proud. He turned his head to look at Yin Dao and said with a smile, "Brother Yin Dao, don't worry. As long as you agree to exchange equipment with me, I won't mistreat you. As for that old bastard Li Mingshan, you don't have to be afraid. As long as I'm here, he won't dare to do anything to you." Speaking up to this point, Wu Kedi's tone paused. He suddenly lowered his voice and said, "Brother Yin Dao, our Wu family has a lot of elixirs that can increase your strength. I hope you won't miss it." Hearing Wu Kedi's words, Yin Dao was suddenly tempted. Wouldn't it be great if Wu Kedi gave him a piece of equipment and some elixirs to increase his strength? Thinking up to this point, Yin Dao hurriedly turned his head to look at Wu Kedi. Just as he was about to speak, Li Mingshan spoke first. "Yin Dao, don't forget that you are now a disciple of the Godly Knife sect. If you dare to do business with the Wu family, the Godly Knife sect will not let you go." Speaking up to this point, Li Mingshan's tone paused for a moment before he continued, "Yin Dao, you have been in the Godly Knife sect for so many years. You should know what kind of methods the Godly Knife sect will use to deal with traitors. What kind of fate those traitors will have. I hope you have thought it through before you make this decision." Hearing Li Mingshan's words, Yin Dao's heart couldn't help but violently beat. The Godly Knife sect's rules were very strict. If someone dared to violate the sect's rules, they would be severely punished. Thinking up to this point, Yin Dao hesitated. Even if he obtained the elixirs, what if the Godly Knife sect wanted to punish him? Seeing that everyone was hesitating and hearing Li Mingshan's threat, Wu Kedi suddenly sneered and said, "Brother Yin Dao, I have said that you don't have to be afraid. If you are afraid that the Godly Knife sect will punish you, then immediately leave the Godly Knife sect and join our Wu family. Then, the Godly Knife sect's rules will naturally have nothing to do with you." Speaking up to this point, Wu Kedi's tone paused for a moment before he continued, "Although our Wu family is not as powerful as the Godly Knife sect, if we want to protect you, it should not be a problem." Just as Wu Kedi's voice fell, Li Mingshan sneered, "Wu Kedi, you really dare to talk big. Do you think that with your Wu family, you can compete with the Godly Knife sect? Let me tell you, you are dreaming." Wu Kedi turned his head to look at Li Mingshan and asked word by word, "Li Mingshan, are you threatening me?" Li Mingshan shook his head, "Wu Kedi, I am not threatening you. I am warning you. If you dare to let Yin Dao leave the Godly Knife sect, then you will be the enemy of the Godly Knife sect. If you are not afraid that the Godly Knife sect's anger will affect the Wu family, then go ahead and do it." Chapter 545. Hearing Li Shan's words, Wu Kedi laughed coldly. "Li Shan, do you think I'll be afraid of what you say?" Li Shan turned to look at Wu Kedi and laughed coldly. "Wu Kedi, it doesn't matter if you're afraid or not. The important thing is, do you really dare to start a war between the Godly Sword sect and the Wu family?" Hearing Li Shan's words, Wu Kedi could not help but grit his teeth. Li Shan was right. He did not dare to start a war between the Godly Sword sect and the Wu family. Although the Wu family was powerful, the Godly Sword sect was even more powerful. Their strength could not be underestimated. If the two families really fought, the Wu family would definitely suffer a great loss. They might not be able to recover from this setback. Most importantly, if he did this and caused some people in the family to be dissatisfied, he might be kicked out of the Wu family before the Godly Sword sect and the Wu family could fight. Thinking about this, cold sweat appeared on Wu Kedi's forehead. When Li Shan saw that Wu Kedi didn't answer his question, he knew that Wu Kedi understood the meaning behind his words. He smiled and said, "Wu Kedi, it's just a piece of equipment. Why do you have to make everyone unhappy just for a piece of equipment?" Speaking up to this point, Li Shan paused for a moment before continuing, "Wu Kedi, as the saying goes, take a step back and you'll be able to see the sky. Why do you have to fight for some personal benefits and forget about the big picture?" Hearing Li Shan's words, Wu Kedi clenched his teeth, but still did not say anything. He was thinking about how much benefit this would bring him. Although the Wu family was important, he was more important. If he had that level 25 equipment, even if he left the South County, he should be able to live a good life. However, was it worth it for him to leave the Wu family with just a level 25 equipment? Just as Wu Kadi was hesitating, Shadowless, who had been standing on the side, suddenly came to the two of them and said with a smile, "Wu Kadi, I think you should just forget about it. If you get that level 25 equipment, it won't be worth it. Why don't you give it up?" Hearing Shadowless' words, Wu Kadi was even more hesitant. Shadowless smiled and continued, "Li Mingshan, why don't I do business with Brother Silverknife?" After saying this, Shadowless turned to look at Yin Dao and smiled. "Brother Yin Dao, if you do this business with me, you'll definitely make a profit. As long as you agree to exchange with me, not only can I give you the spirit medicine, but I can also let you leave the South County and live a new life." Shadowless paused for a bit before continuing, "Brother Silverblade, think about it. With the spirit medicine I gave you, you'll be able to go to a new place and live a new life. You'll be able to start a glorious life. Think about it, this is such a wonderful thing. If you are willing, this wish can be realized immediately." Hearing Shadowless's words, Yin Dao's eyes lit up. He had always lived in South County. He had never gone anywhere else and had never had those thoughts. Just now, he only thought that he would be punished by the Godly Knife sect, and would not be able to do as he wished. However, if he listened to Shadowless, things would be different. Although he would lose the level 25 equipment, he could use the spirit medicine to increase his strength. Not only that, he could also leave the South County and live a new life. Thinking that his martial arts would improve, and he would be able to live a new life in another place, this wonderful feeling made Silverknife very tempted. Yin Dao turned to look at Shadowless and asked in a trembling voice, "Shadowless, can you really do that?" Hearing Yin Dao's question, Shadowless sneered inside. He had clearly seen the conversation between Wu Kadi and Li Mingshan, as well as Yin Dao's expression. Shadowless knew what Yin Dao was worried about. That was why he said something that could solve this problem to make Yin Dao feel tempted. Shadowless nodded. "Don't worry, I never lie. If you don't believe that I have this ability, you can ask your protector. He will definitely know my ability." Hearing Shadowless's words, Silverknife subconsciously turned to look at Li Mingshan. Li Mingshan was coldly looking at him. Seeing Li Mingshan's cold gaze, Yin Dao was shocked. He did not ask the question he wanted to ask. Seeing that Yin Dao actually believed Shadowless, Li Mingshan was furious. However, he had nothing to say because Shadowless really did have this ability. Although the Godly Knife sect was powerful in the South County, it was hard to say if they left the South County. However, Shadowless was different. The power behind him covered the entire Anwu country. It could be said that it was easy to take Yin Dao out of the South County. Seeing that Li Mingshan did not speak, Shadowless smiled and asked, "Li Mingshan, am I right?" Hearing this, Li Mingshan sneered. "Shadowless, I admit that you are right, but do you really dare to do this?" After hearing Li Shan's words, Shadowless was stunned. The smile on his face froze. After a while, he sneered. "Li Mingshan, why wouldn't I dare?" Li Mingshan looked at Shadowless and slowly said, "Our Godly Knife sect has been developing in the South County for so many years. Even if you want to take Yin Dao away, do you think it is possible?" Shadowless sneered. "Why not? Do you think your Godly Knife sect dares to stop me?" After hearing Shadowless's words, Li Mingshan solemnly said, "If things really develop to that point, Yin Dao will be a traitor of the Godly Knife sect. The Godly Knife sect will definitely go all out to deal with him. At that time, are you sure you can protect Yin Dao and leave?" After hearing Li Shan's words, Shadowless also frowned. Although level 25 equipment was precious, was it really worth it to become enemies with the Godly Knife sect? Seeing that Shadowless was hesitating, Li Mingshan continued, "Shadowless, for this level 25 equipment, do you think it is worth it to make our two sects enemies?" Wu Kadi and Shadowless were thinking about Li Mingshan's question. Was it worth it? Seeing that the two of them were hesitating, Li Shan turned his head to look at Yin Dao and sternly shouted, "Yin Dao, don't tell me you dare to betray your sect?" Hearing Li Mingshan's question, Yin Dao subconsciously answered, "Disciple does not dare." Hearing Yin Dao's answer, Li Mingshan nodded in satisfaction and said with a gentle tone, "Yin Dao, I knew you were a good person. You would never do anything that would betray your sect." Yin Dao suddenly said, "Lord Protector, what kind of elixirs can I exchange for this level 25 equipment?" Li Mingshan was stunned and shook his head. "I don't know. It depends on the sect master." Yin Dao heard this and pondered for a moment before asking, "Lord Protector, this equipment." Chapter 546. Yin Dao asked, "Lord Protector, if I use this equipment to exchange with the Wu clan, what will happen?" After listening to Yin Dao's words, Li Shan suddenly became furious and shouted, "That is treason and heresy. Going against the sect is an unforgivable crime." Hearing Li Shan's words, Wu Kadi suddenly sneered, "Li Shan, if Yin Dao joins our Wu clan, then what you've just said won't happen." Li Shan turned his head to look at Wu Kadi and said coldly, "Wu Kadi, you are dreaming. Yin Dao is a disciple of the Godly Knife sect and will always be a disciple of the Godly Knife sect. If he wants to leave the Godly Knife sect, then he will become an enemy of the Godly Knife sect. The Godly Knife sect will never let him go." Wu Kadi sneered, "Li Shan, who are you trying to scare? Yin Dao is just a low-level disciple of the Godly Knife sect. Even if he leaves the Godly Knife sect, no one will pursue him." Li Shan looked at Wu Kadi and shouted, "Wu Kadi, why don't you give it a try?" Hearing Li Shan's words, Wu Kadi suddenly laughed, "Since you want me to give it a try, then I will give it a try. Let's see if your Godly Knife sect will go to war with our Wu clan for a low-level disciple." At this point, Wu Kadi paused and turned to look at Yin Dao before continuing, "Yin Dao, you don't have to be afraid. As long as you join our Wu clan, we have the responsibility to protect you. We won't let outsiders bully you." Hearing the two quarreling, Yin Dao felt a splitting headache. He could not help but shout, "Stop talking, my head hurts." After saying this, Yin Dao held his head and slowly fell down. He could not help but cough violently. Seeing this, Wu Kadi quickly comforted him, "Yin Dao, don't worry. As long as you join our Wu clan, we will give you the best elixirs to increase your strength. At that time, even without our Wu clan's protection, with your own ability, the Godly Knife sect will not be able to do anything to you." After Li Mingshan heard Wu Kadi's words, he was furious. Just as he was about to reach for the saber, he suddenly found that his hand was held down by someone. He was shocked. He turned his head and found that it was Li Mingshui who held down his hand. Li Mingshui grabbed Li Mingshan's hand and nodded slightly. Then he turned his head and looked at the silver knife on the ground. "Yin Dao, don't listen to Wu Kadi's nonsense. Even if you join the Wu clan, you'll only get one type of elixir. It won't be of much help to you." Speaking up to this point, Li Mingshan paused for a moment before continuing, "But if you stay in the Godly Knife sect, you'll get a lot of benefits. Perhaps the elixir you get might not be as good as the elixir the Wu clan gives you, but don't forget, we can introduce you to the Godly Knife sect's sect master's sixth brother. As long as he is willing to accept you as his disciple, other than getting the elixir, you can also become the disciple of the Godly Knife sect's sect master's sixth disciple. I'm afraid the Wu clan will never give you this kind of benefit, so you must think carefully. Don't fall into Wu Kadi's trap." After hearing Li Mingshui's words, Yin Dao, who was coughing non-stop on the ground, struggled to get up. He sat on the ground and raised his head to look at Li Mingshui. "Lord Protector, is what you said true? Even if I used that level 25 equipment to exchange for the elixir, would you still be willing to introduce me to the Godly Knife sect's sect master's sixth disciple?" Li Mingshui nodded, "We will keep our word. We definitely won't lie to you." After saying this, Li Mingshui paused for a moment before continuing, "There are so many people watching here. Even if we lie to you, I'm afraid it won't be easy." After hearing Li Mingshui's confirmation, Yin Dao's face finally revealed a trace of a smile. "Thank you, Lord Protector. If the Godly Knife sect Master's sixth disciple is really willing to accept me as a disciple, I definitely won't forget the two Lord Protectors in the future." After hearing Yin Dao's words, Li Mingshui nodded his head in satisfaction. However, in his heart, he couldn't help but sneer. What a childish fellow to actually believe such words. Even if the Godly Knife sect Master's sixth disciple didn't have good eyesight, he definitely wouldn't take a fancy to such a useless fellow. After hearing Li Mingshan's words, Wu Kedi's heart suddenly moved. Although Yin Dao didn't understand the meaning behind Li Mingshan's words, he, Wu Kedi, wasn't someone who would be easily fooled. Yin Dao had already suffered such heavy injuries. Not only that, no one had treated him until now. He believed that it wouldn't be long before Yin Dao died. Since Yin Dao had already died, then all the promises he made were just empty words. After understanding this point, Wu Kedi suddenly laughed out loud. He turned his head to look at Yin Dao and said with a smile, "Yin Dao, I can tell you the truth. I, Wu Kedi, have a high position in the Wu family. As long as you agree to join our Wu family, the benefits I will give you will definitely not be less than what the Godly Knife sect will give you." After hearing Wu Kedi's words, Yin Dao hurriedly turned his head and asked in confusion, "What benefits will your Wu family give me?" Hearing this, Wu Kedi raised his head proudly. "I can introduce you to our family's successor. As long as he agrees to accept you as a disciple, you will naturally become our family's successor's disciple." At that time, speaking up to here, Wu Kedi's tone paused for a moment before continuing. "At that time, Yin Dao, think about it carefully. Once you become our Wu family's successor's disciple, how glorious would that be? Wouldn't it be much better than becoming the Godly Knife sect Master's sixth disciple?" Hearing Wu Kedi's words, Yin Dao was a little tempted. Although he was only a mediocre disciple of the Godly Knife sect, he had heard of the Wu family's great name. If he could really become a member of the famous Wu family and become the Wu family's successor's disciple, it would definitely be a great thing. After hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Mingshui secretly cursed him for being shameless. Seeing that Yin Dao was a little tempted, he hurriedly said, "Yin Dao, don't listen to Wu Kedi's nonsense. Let me tell you the truth. Even if you become the Wu family's successor's disciple, you will only be an outer sect disciple. You will definitely not be able to become a core member of the Wu family." Speaking up to here, Li Mingshui paused for a moment before continuing, "Yin Dao, don't forget that the important positions in the Wu family are all held by people with the surname Wu. As an outsider, no matter how hard you work, you will still be an outsider in the end. Even if you become the Wu family's successor's disciple, your status as an outsider will definitely not be of any help. Yin Dao, you must think clearly about the choice you want to make. Yin Dao, if you really want to join the Wu family and become an outsider of the Wu family forever, then I will not persuade you, nor will I urge you to stay." Chapter 547. After hearing Li Mingshui's words, Yin Dao frowned deeply. The tempted expression on his face gradually disappeared. If it wasn't for Li Mingshui's reminder, he would have forgotten about this matter. Although the Wu clan was powerful, they were still a clan. No matter how hard others struggled, the most important positions in the Wu clan would always be held by the Wu clan members. There was no doubt about this. Thinking of this, Yin Dao lost interest in talking to Wu Kedi and lowered his head again. Seeing this, Wu Kedi turned his head and glared fiercely at Li Mingshui. However, he was quickly thinking of a plan. Although Wu Kedi was thinking of a plan, he couldn't think of anything in a short amount of time. Li Mingshui was right. The most important positions in the Wu clan were all held by the Wu clan members. Even if an outsider joined the Wu clan, he would only be given an unimportant position. This was the truth, and Wu Kedi had no way to defend himself. However, if he couldn't defend himself, it meant that the level 25 equipment had flown away. Therefore, he had to think of a way to keep that equipment. Li Mingxue saw that Wu Kedi didn't speak, but his eyes were darting around. He knew that Wu Kedi was thinking of something bad. However, Li Mingxue wasn't worried that Wu Kedi would come up with something bad. This was because he knew that what he said was right. This was Wu Kedi's weakness, and he couldn't resolve it. Li Mingxue was pleased with himself. He sneered and turned his head to look at Wu Kedi. Wu Kedi, what else do you have to say? After saying this, Li Mingxue saw that Wu Kedi still didn't reply, so he continued, Wu Kedi, actually, you don't have to lie to Yin Dao. What I said is the truth. Even if Yin Dao joins the Wu clan and becomes the successor of the Wu clan, so what? As long as he isn't a member of the Wu clan, he will never have a future in the Wu clan. Wu Kedi, am I right? Hearing Li Mingxue's sarcastic words, Wu Kedi suddenly had an idea. He immediately looked up to the sky and laughed. After a long while, Wu Kedi lowered his head and looked at Li Mingxue. Li Mingxue, I really have to thank you for reminding me. Otherwise, I really can't think of any other way. After hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Mingxue sneered. Wu Kedi, don't talk nonsense. This is a dead end. You can't resolve it. Just admit defeat. Wu Kedi turned his head to look at Li Mingxue and said mockingly, Admit defeat, Li Mingxue. I won't admit defeat so easily. After saying this, Wu Kedi turned his head to look at Yin Dao and said with a smile, Yin Dao, as long as you join the Wu clan, I can ask the Wu clan successor to take you in as a foster son. Wouldn't that make you a member of the Wu clan? As soon as Wu Kedi's voice fell, the surrounding people gasped. Li Mingxue stared at Wu Kedi, dumbfounded. He couldn't understand how this old man could be so shameless. Wu Ketian, who was not far away, also heard Wu Kedi's words. After the initial shock, he immediately felt his face burning. He didn't think that his younger brother would dare to speak so boldly. Not only that, he even said such ridiculous things. Although the two of them were also members of the Wu clan, they were still far from being the Wu clan's successor. Who was the Wu clan's successor? He was an existence that was second only to one person. Would he accept an outsider as his foster son just because you asked? If that was the case, then wouldn't all the outsiders in the Wu clan become the foster sons of the Wu clan's successor? Among everyone present, the only person who wasn't surprised was Wu Kedi. This was because he already had a plan in mind. This was only a temporary measure. Wu Kedi's ultimate goal was to let Yin Dao join the Wu clan and obtain that level 25 equipment. Yin Dao also heard Wu Kedi's words. His heart was in turmoil. If he could become the foster son of the Wu clan's successor, the benefits would definitely be much better than the Godly Knife sect's sixth disciple taking him in as a disciple. Between a foster son and a disciple, the foster son was naturally one level higher than the disciple. Thinking of this, Yin Dao turned his head to look at Wu Kedi. He wanted to ask about the details, but at this moment, a thunderous roar came from beside him. No! After Li Mingxue shouted this sentence, he took a few deep breaths and calmed down his anger a little. Then, he slowly said, That's right. He then calmed himself down and slowly said, Yin Dao, don't believe Wu Kedi's nonsense. It's impossible for the Wu clan's successor to take you in as his foster son. Wu Kedi is lying to you. Hearing this, Wu Kedi turned his head to look at Li Mingxue and asked with a cold smile, Li Mingxue, tell me, how did I lie to Yin Dao? Hearing Wu Kedi's words, Yin Dao hurriedly turned his head to look at Li Mingxue. He wanted to hear if this was true or not. Li Mingxue coldly said, Wu Kedi, do you think that the Wu clan's successor will accept Yin Dao as his foster son even if you talk to him? Speaking of this, Li Mingxue paused for a moment before continuing, Wu Kedi, let me ask you, after you said this, do you believe it yourself? Wu Kedi laughed. Why wouldn't I believe it? I grew up with the Wu clan's successor and we're like brothers. If I ask him about this matter, do you think he won't agree to it? Hearing Wu Kadi's explanation, Yin Dao's eyes suddenly lit up. If what Wu Kadi said was true, that he really grew up together with the Wu clan's successor, and that they were as close as brothers, then asking the Wu clan's successor to adopt Yin Dao as his son was a very likely thing. Not far away, Wu Ketian's face turned even redder after hearing Wu Kadi's words. The Wu clan's successor was the direct descendant of the previous clan head, and the two brothers were only direct descendants. As for saying that the two brothers grew up together with the Wu clan's successor, it wasn't a lie, but what was the use of it? The Wu clan's successor was heavily nurtured since he was young. It was true that he grew up with the Wu brothers, but they didn't grow up together. Wu Ketian had never seen the Wu clan's successor since he was young, so how could they be like brothers? After hearing Wu Kadi's words, Li Mingxue was stunned. He looked at Wu Kadi in disbelief and asked doubtfully, "Wu Kadi, is what you said true? Could it be that you and the Wu clan's successor are like brothers, and you grew up together?" Wu Kadi nodded, of course. Otherwise, why would I say this? Hearing Wu Kadi's explanation, Li Mingxue sighed secretly. If this was true, then it would be really difficult to deal with. Just when Li Mingxue was in a difficult position, he heard Li Mingshan sneer at the side. "Wu Kadi, you really dare to talk nonsense." Chapter 548. Li Shan sneered. "Wu Kadi, do you think we're that easy to fool? Although we're not from the Wu family, we still know a little about the South region." Speaking of this, Li Shan paused for a moment before continuing. "As far as I know, although the Wu family's heir and you both have the same surname, the treatment you receive is very different. Also, you said that you grew up together with the Wu family's heir. When you said this, do you believe it yourself?" Haha. Speaking of this, Li Shan looked up to the sky and laughed. Looking at the laughing Li Shan, Wu Kadi's old face turned red. He said with some anger, "Li Shan, how am I talking nonsense? There is a little difference between us and the Wu family's heir. Is there anything wrong with that? Also, why can't I grow up together with the Wu family's heir? Why wouldn't I believe it?" Speaking of this, Wu Kadi paused for a moment before continuing, "Li Shan, don't talk nonsense about things you haven't seen before. Otherwise, you'll be laughed at and lose the face of the Godly Knife sect. Outsiders will say that the Godly Knife sect's people are ignorant and only know how to talk nonsense." Hearing Wu Kadi's words, Li Shan's smile suddenly stopped. He lowered his head and looked at Wu Kadi fiercely. He said coldly, "Wu Kadi, do you really want me to say something you don't want to hear?" Hearing Li Shan's words, Wu Kadi was shocked. He thought to himself, "Does this Li Shan really know about the Wu family's matters?" Thinking of this, Wu Kadi couldn't help but feel guilty. He forced himself to calm down and said, "Li Shan, don't scare me. If you really know something, would you not say it?" Li Shan looked at Wu Kadi and sneered. "Wu Kadi, I heard that you and the Wu family's heir did grow up together, but not together. Not only that, it seems that the Wu family's heir hates you." Speaking of this, Li Shan paused for a moment before continuing, "Wu Kadi, I didn't say this. Some people in the Wu family told me this. Remember, it wasn't just one person who said this, but several people. Your relationship with the Wu family's heir isn't good. Wu Kadi, since the two of you don't have a good relationship, how can you persuade the Wu clan's successor to adopt Yin Dao as his son? I'm really curious about this. Can you explain it to me? What's the reason for you to have the courage to let your enemy adopt the person you introduced as his son?" After hearing Li Shan's words, Wu Kadi's eyes were about to spit fire, but when he opened his mouth, he couldn't say anything to refute. This was because what Li Shan said was true. He definitely wasn't lying. His relationship with the Wu family's successor was really bad. Wu Kedi was slightly older than the Wu clan's successor. When he was young, he wasn't very sensible. When he was still young and ignorant, he beat up the Wu clan's successor who was younger than him. If it was just a spar between the two of them, it wouldn't be a big deal. However, Wu Kedi had beaten up the successor of the Wu clan so badly that 2 of his teeth had been knocked out. More importantly, those were his front teeth. Because the Wu clan's successor lost his 2 front teeth, he also lost his smile. This was because as long as he smiled, people would see that he was missing 2 teeth. Therefore, from then on, the Wu clan's successor no longer smiled. Even when there was no one around, he wouldn't smile. This was because he felt that smiling was a humiliation to him, a humiliation that he would never forget. Although after he grew up, Wu Kedi really regretted it. He regretted that he had beaten him so heavily. In short, he regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. But so what? He had already knocked out 2 teeth from the Wu clan's successor's mouth. Even if he regretted it, this matter was absolutely irreparable. The Wu clan's successor's teeth would never recover. Thinking about the painful past that Wu Kedi had deliberately suppressed, Wu Kedi felt as if his heart was being twisted by a knife. His heart was filled with both regret and hatred. For a moment, he actually couldn't speak. Looking at Wu Kedi's twisted face, Li Shan laughed loudly. He felt very carefree in his heart. "Little Wu Kedi, you want to fight with me with just those 2 moves of yours? You must be dreaming." Seeing that Wu Kedi wasn't willing to answer his question, Li Shan sneered and said, "Wu Kedi, what else do you want to say now?" Hearing this, Wu Kedi suddenly raised his head and sneered, "Li Mingshan, don't talk nonsense. What you said is all nonsense. There is no basis for any fact, since it's just your imagination." Speaking up to here, Wu Kedi's tone paused. He turned his head and looked at Yin Dao before continuing, "Yin Dao, don't believe Li Shan's words. Is he lying to you? Yin Dao, have you forgotten my surname? My surname is Wu. The Wu clan's successor is also surnamed Wu. We are all family. Don't tell me that he won't help me with this matter? Yin Dao, believe me, this is impossible. The Wu clan's successor is also surnamed Wu. He will definitely give me face." Before Wu Kedi's voice faded away, Li Mingshan sneered and said, "Wu Kedi, do you still have the face to quibble? Your relationship with the successor of the Wu family is very bad. If you want to make peace, I'm afraid it's impossible." Wu Kedi sneered and said, "Li Shan, you don't need to care about this matter. As long as I can do this matter, it will naturally fulfill my promise to Brother Yin Dao. As for what I will do, it doesn't seem to have anything to do with you." After listening to Wu Kedi's words, Li Shan shook his head and sneered, "Yin Dao is a disciple of our godly knife sect. You keep talking nonsense here and want our disciples to betray our sect. Tell me, if Yin Dao really joins the Wu clan, does this count as betraying the sect? If I take care of this matter, does this count as me meddling in other people's business?" Wu Kedi shook his head. "If Yin Dao leaves your godly knife sect first and then joins our Wu clan, then tell me, does this count as betraying the godly knife sect? Tell me again, is this not meddling in other people's business?" After listening to Wu Kedi's words, Li Shan angrily shouted, "Wu Kedi, don't talk nonsense. Why would Yin Dao leave the godly knife sect? Does he have to join your Wu clan to have a real future?" Hearing this, Wu Kedi laughed. "Li Shan, you are right. If Yin Dao joins our Wu clan, he will definitely have a better future than staying in the godly knife sect." Chapter 549. After hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Mingshan did not continue to argue with him. Instead, he turned his head to look at Yin Dao and asked with a smile, "Yin Dao, don't tell me you really want to leave the godly knife sect?" After hearing Li Shan's words, Yin Dao's face showed a trace of hesitation as he stammered. As seeing Yin Dao's expression, Li Shan immediately knew that Wu Kedi's words had moved Yin Dao's heart. Thinking of this, Li Shan did not wait for Yin Dao to finish speaking and waved his hand to interrupt him. Yin Dao, what Wu Kedi just said is nonsense. His relationship with the Wu family's successor is not good. Even if he wants to introduce you to the Wu family's successor, I'm afraid that the Wu family's successor will not meet him. Yin Dao, think about it. Under these circumstances, how could Wu Kedi's words be true? Yin Dao turned to look at Wu Kedi. Just as he was about to ask, Wu Kedi spoke first. Yin Dao, don't listen to Li Shan's nonsense. Since I promised you this matter, I will definitely do it for you. Believe me, I will not be wrong. After hearing Wu Kedi's words, Yin Dao began to hesitate again. Wu Kedi's offer was too good. If he could become the Wu family's successor's adopted son, even if he could not become the Wu family's patriarch, he would definitely become an important person in the Wu family. Moreover, Wu Kedi also promised to give him an elixir to increase his strength with the level 25 equipment. With such good conditions, how could Yin Dao not be tempted? Li Shan saw that Yin Dao was stubborn and only wanted to become the Wu family's successor's adopted son, so he could not help but feel anxious. Yin Dao, do you think that there are no benefits to becoming the Godly Knife Sect's sixth disciple? After saying this, Li Shan paused for a moment before continuing. Yin Dao, let me tell you, the Godly Knife Sect's sixth disciple has a daughter. She is about the same age as you. If you are lucky, you can become the Godly Knife Sect's sixth disciple's son-in-law. Isn't this a great thing? As soon as Li Shan finished speaking, the surrounding people once again gasped. Everyone was secretly cursing Li Shan for being too shameless. In order to win over Yin Dao, he didn't even say such shameless words. Hearing Li Shan's words, Yin Dao's chaotic mind suddenly lit up. He had never seen the daughter of the sixth disciple of the Godly Knife Sect, but he had heard of her. It was said that she was as beautiful as a flower, and her martial arts were high. The sixth disciple of the Godly Knife Sect spoiled her to the heavens. If he could really, thinking of this, even Yin Dao didn't dare to think any further. It was too unbelievable. Yin Dao had already gone crazy. There was no longer any normal thought in his mind. It was just his wishful thinking. If this could really happen, after Wu Kedi heard Li Shan's words, he couldn't wait to tear Li Shan's mouth apart. How could he say such words? He was simply shameless to the extreme. Wu Kedi was speechless. He had just said something shameless, but he never thought that Li Bingshan would be even more shameless than him, to actually say something like that. However, Wu Kedi understood that Yin Dao wouldn't be able to get anything in the end because his injuries were too serious. No matter what conditions were given to him, he wouldn't be able to enjoy them. Therefore, the most important thing now was how to win over Yin Dao. As for the conditions, he could just say whatever he wanted. After all, they couldn't be fulfilled. Thinking of this, Wu Kedi turned his head and glanced at Li Shan. He gave him a thumbs up and said in a low voice, Li Shan, you win. However, do you think I'm afraid of you? Speaking of this, Wu Kedi paused. He turned his head and looked at Yin Dao before continuing, Yin Dao, if you want to marry a wife, it's very simple. Our Wu family has a ready-made one. Not only is she beautiful, but her martial arts are also outstanding. More importantly, her surname is Wu. She's a direct descendant of our Wu family. As long as you agree, I'll immediately get it done for you. Yin Dao, what do you think? After hearing Wu Kedi's words, Yin Dao's eyes suddenly lit up. He hurriedly turned his head to look at Wu Kedi and asked in surprise, Really? Wu Kedi nodded and said with a smile, Yin Dao, why would I lie to you? Speaking of this, Wu Kedi paused for a moment before continuing, Yin Dao, you're an ambitious young man. Although your martial arts talent is a bit lacking, with the nourishment of the elixir, as long as you practice hard, you'll definitely have a bright future. Yin Dao, believe me. What I said is true. As long as you agree, I'll immediately realize your dream for you. As soon as Wu Kedi finished speaking, before Yin Dao could say anything, Li Shan, whose face had become extremely ugly, couldn't wait to roar. Wu Kedi, you're too shameless. How could you say such words? You're simply too. In the end, Li Shan didn't even say that word himself. Hearing Li Shan's roar, Wu Kedi didn't care at all. He lightly said, Li Shan, don't you think that Yin Dao is a good young man? Although your godly knife sect doesn't value him, our Wu family will definitely value talent. Li Shan was so angry that he simply flew into a rage. He pointed his finger at Wu Kedi and sternly shouted, Wu Kedi, who said that our godly knife sect doesn't value Yin Dao? Wu Kedi sneered, Li Shan, don't lie. If your godly knife sect really values Yin Dao, then his martial arts wouldn't be so bad. Speaking of this, Wu Kedi's tone paused for a moment before continuing, Li Shan, not to mention others, just our Wu family alone provides your godly knife sect with many elixirs that can increase one's strength every year. Since you value Yin Dao, then why don't you give him some elixirs that can increase his strength? After hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Shan suddenly froze. For a moment, he couldn't refute. Wu Kedi was right. The godly knife sect did consume a lot of elixirs every year. These elixirs were naturally used on those talented disciples. This was a fact that Li Shan couldn't refute. What made Li Shan even more speechless was that the godly knife sect consumed so many elixirs every year, but none of them were used on Yin Dao. Why was that? Everyone knew that in the godly knife sect, there were simply too many disciples like Yin Dao. Compared to the large number of disciples, those elixirs were actually far from enough. They could only focus on cultivating more talented disciples. As for Yin Dao's martial arts talent, naturally, there was no need to cultivate him. Because in everyone's opinion, doing so would just be wasting elixirs in vain. It wouldn't have much effect. If these elixirs could be used on those talented disciples. Chapter 550. Li Shan was very clear that if those precious elixirs were given to those extremely talented disciples, they would be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. It was because of this that disciples like Yin Dao, who were not talented enough, would not be able to obtain any elixirs. Wu Kedi saw that Li Shan did not answer and sneered again. Li Shan, if you don't speak, then it means that I am right. Speaking up to here, Wu Kedi paused and turned to look at Yin Dao before continuing. Yin Dao, you just saw that even if you stay in the godly knife sect, you will not be able to obtain any elixirs. Maybe even the matter of the godly knife sect's sixth disciple is fake. If that is the case, then why do you still want to stay in the godly knife sect? Yin Dao, as long as you join the Wu clan, you will be able to obtain everything you want. Your dream will not be far from you. Think about it, Yin Dao, this is a wonderful thing. As long as you say the word, I will do everything for you. After hearing Wu Kedi's words, Yin Dao turned to look at Li Shan and asked with some doubt, Lord Protector, is what he said true? Hearing this, Li Shan forced a smile and shook his head. Yin Dao, how could it be true? Don't listen to his nonsense. Do you think that once you join the Wu clan, everything will be smooth sailing? After asking this question, Li Shan paused for a moment. He didn't wait for Yin Dao's reply and continued, Yin Dao, let me tell you, that is impossible. Do you think that the Wu clan has an endless supply of elixirs? That's impossible. Most of the Wu clan's elixirs have been sold. They use the money from these elixirs to maintain the Wu clan's operations. Only a small portion is left in the Wu clan. It can be said that the Wu clan's control over elixirs is stricter than any other sect because they have very little elixirs in storage. In the Wu clan, other than disciples with the surname Wu, it is basically impossible for outsiders to obtain any elixirs. If you don't believe me, you can ask him. In the Wu clan, which disciple with the surname Wu has obtained any elixirs? If he can say it, then I lose. If he can't, then he is lying. Hearing Li Shan's words, Wu Kudi's expression couldn't help but change. When he saw Yin Dao looking over, he hurriedly said with a smile, "Yin Dao, don't listen to Li Shan's nonsense. If what he said is true, then why are there so many people joining our Wu family? You can go to the South region and ask around. How many disciples do our Wu family have with different surnames? Then everything will be clear." Hearing that both of them had their own reasons, Yin Dao was confused. He couldn't tell who was right and who was wrong. Seeing that Yin Dao was hesitating, Li Shan hurriedly smiled and said, "Yin Dao, you are a disciple of the Godly Knife sect and have been in the Godly Knife sect for many years. Don't you know the situation of the Godly Knife sect? I, Li Shan, always keep my word. I will never lie to you." After hearing Li Shan's words, Wu Kudi naturally didn't want to be outdone. He loudly said, "Yin Dao, is our Wu family's reputation a lie? If you ask around, you will know that our Wu family has always been fair. As long as a disciple has talent, we will do our best to train them." Speaking up to here, Wu Kudi paused for a moment before continuing, "Yin Dao, I believe that even without my introduction, if you come to the Wu family, our Wu family will not treat you badly." After hearing Wu Kudi's words, Li Shan suddenly laughed. He took a step forward and whispered to Yin Dao, "Yin Dao, if you can become the 6th disciple of the Godly Knife sect's sect master, you will learn a lot of high-level martial arts. You also know how strong our Godly Knife sect's martial arts are. In the South region, it can be said that there is no opponent. If you learn those martial arts, you will definitely stand out." After hearing Li Shan's words, Wu Kudi suddenly sneered, "Yin Dao, do you think that our Wu family's martial arts are weak?" Speaking up to here, Wu Kudi paused for a moment before continuing, "Yin Dao, let me ask you, between me and Li Shan, who is stronger and who is weaker?" Hearing Wu Kudi's question, Yin Dao couldn't help but frown. He looked at Wu Kudi and then looked at Li Shan. After hesitating for a moment, he shook his head, "I don't know." Hearing this, Wu Kudi sneered, "Yin Dao, you don't have to be afraid of Li Shan. If it is just martial arts, he is definitely not my opponent." From this, it can be seen that the Godly Knife sect's martial arts are not stronger than the Wu family's. So, Yin Dao, quickly join our Wu family. If you agree, everything will be better and success will be closer to you. Just as Wu Kudi finished speaking, Li Shan's sharp sneer came from the side. "Wu Kudi, you really know how to talk. You think that my martial arts are not as good as yours?" Wu Kudi calmly nodded. "Li Shan, in order to let Yin Dao know the truth, I can only tell him the truth. Please don't be offended." Seeing Wu Kudi's calm appearance, Li Shan was so angry that even his hands were trembling. Li Shan slowly reached out his hand to hold the hilt of his sword and coldly shouted, "Wu Kudi, are you serious?" Wu Kudi turned his head to look at Li Shan and sighed, "Li Shan, it's better for Yin Dao to know the truth. This way, it will be better for him." Li Shan suddenly sneered, "Wu Kudi, your martial arts are higher than mine. Do you think that is the truth?" Wu Kudi looked at Li Shan with some surprise. "Li Shan, do you think that what I said is wrong?" Hearing this, Li Shan shook his head. "I don't have any opinion about what you said." Speaking up to here, Li Shan's tone paused. He suddenly sneered again and held the hilt of his sword even tighter, then continued, "Wu Kudi, I don't have any opinion. But have you asked my sword? It seems that my sword has an opinion. He doesn't agree with what you said." Wu Kudi turned his head to look at Li Shan's hand holding the sword and lightly said, "Li Shan, the sword is in your hand. Naturally, you have the final say." Li Shan nodded. "Okay, I remember what you said. Then let's have a try. Let's see whose martial arts are worse than mine." Hearing this, Wu Kudi secretly became vigilant. At the same time, his legs slowly separated, ready to deal with Li Shan's attack at any time. Although Wu Kudi's movements were subtle, Li Shan was the protector of the godly knife sect. Even if Wu Kudi's movements were subtle, he could still see it clearly. Seeing that Wu Kudi was ready, Li Shan sneered and said, "Wu Kudi, are you ready?" Chapter 551. Wu Kudi nodded and said loudly, "Li Shan, I advise you not to do this. You will embarrass yourself in front of Yin Dao." Li Shan sneered, "Don't be afraid. My martial arts are not as good as yours. Even if I lose, it doesn't matter." Speaking up to here, Li Shan paused for a moment before continuing, "But you, Wu Kudi, if you lose, then what you just said will be a slap to your own face." Hearing Li Shan's words, Wu Kudi was shocked. When he said those words, he just wanted Yin Dao to believe that he was right to join the Wu family. But after hearing Li Shan's words, he felt that it was right. He already said that Li Shan was not his opponent. Even if Li Shan lost, it would not affect him much. But if he lost, then it would be terrible. Seeing Wu Kudi's hesitation, Li Shan sneered in his heart and said loudly, "Wu Kudi, you are afraid." Speaking up to here, Li Shan paused for a moment before continuing, "Wu Kudi, if you are afraid, then please take back what you just said. There is no need for us to compete." Hearing this, Wu Kudi was stunned for a moment before shaking his head. "Li Shan, do you think I am afraid of you? Let me tell you the truth. I am afraid that you will lose face in front of Yin Dao, so I am giving you this chance." Speaking up to here, Wu Kudi paused for a moment before continuing, "But since you want to compete, then don't blame me for not giving you face." Hearing Wu Kudi's words, Li Shan said mockingly, "Wu Kudi, I beg you. Please don't give me face. I really can't accept it." Hearing this, Wu Kudi's old face turned red. He said angrily, "Li Shan, if you want to compete, then hurry up and stop talking nonsense." Hearing Wu Kudi's clamor, Li Shan slowly nodded. His hand holding the sword slowly began to pull it out. Looking at Li Shan's movements, Wu Kudi also became somewhat nervous. Although he didn't fight with Li Shan, he saw everything clearly when Li Shan was fighting with fire spirit. Li Shan's martial arts were definitely not weak, and could even be said to be very strong. Although Wu Kudi was very confident in his martial arts, he didn't think that he could defeat Li Mingshan. Therefore, he had to be careful when dealing with Li Mingshan. Li Shan slowly pulled out the saber in his hand. A silver light flashed in front of his eyes. Li Shan looked at the saber in his hand and slightly flicked it in front of him. Wu Kudi felt a silver light flash in front of his eyes, and a chill rushed towards him. When Wu Kudi saw the power of Li Mingshan's saber, he didn't dare to be careless. He clenched his fists even tighter and opened his eyes wide, staring at Li Mingshan's every move. Looking at Wu Kudi's cautious appearance, Li Shan couldn't help but sneer in his heart. He didn't believe that Wu Kudi could block his blade. When Li Shan slowly raised the saber in his hand, Shadowless suddenly rushed to Li Shan's side and said in a low voice, "Li Shan, are you crazy? Do you really want to fight with Wu Kudi?" Li Shan turned his head to look at Shadowless and said with a smile, "Shadowless, you heard what Wu Kudi said just now. He dared to say that my martial arts are not as good as his. I'm asking if you can tolerate this kind of thing." Hearing Li Shan's question, Shadowless froze for a moment and then shook his head. "No, if it were me, I would have already rushed up and cut him into 8 pieces. Li Shan smiled coldly. "Then why did you stop me?" Shadowless said in a low voice, "Li Shan, the main goal now is Silver Saber. No matter how good Wu Kudi's words sound, as long as Silver Saber doesn't believe it, what use is Wu Kudi's words?" Hearing Shadowless's words, Li Shan's heart suddenly moved and he finally reacted. Right, everything he and Wu Kudi did was to make Silver Saber believe that he was the strongest. As long as Silver Saber didn't believe it, then what was the point of saying that? Thinking of this, Li Shan suddenly shifted his gaze from Wu Kudi to Silver Saber. Silver Saber, do you believe what Wu Kedi said just now? Do you believe that my martial arts are not as good as Wu Kedi's? Hearing this, Silver Saber shook his head. I don't know. Hearing Silver Saber's answer, Li Shan nodded. Silver Saber, it's right that you don't know. This proves that you are not lying because you have never seen Wu Kedi and me fight, so you don't know who is stronger between the two of us. Speaking of this, Li Shan paused for a moment and then continued, Silver Saber, I am very pleased with your answer. As the protector of the Godly Saber sect, I naturally hope that the disciples of the Godly Saber sect can be like you, an honest and reliable person. Silver Saber, I hope that you can lead the disciples of the Godly Saber sect to not lie in the future. After saying this, Li Shan looked at Silver Saber with bright eyes and sincerely asked, Silver Saber, can you agree to my request? Hearing Li Shan's words, Silver Saber was shocked. Wu Kedi was a little annoyed. He had been preparing for a long time and had already thought of a way to deal with Li Shan. However, he never expected that Li Shan would suddenly change his mind and use this method. However, although Li Shan's idea was simple, it seemed to be quite effective against a madman like Silver Saber. Seeing that Silver Saber was about to nod, Wu Kedi suddenly shouted, Li Shan, the reason why Silver Saber said that he doesn't know who is stronger is because he doesn't want to lose face as the protector of the Godly Saber sect. Therefore, he had no choice but to say that. After saying this, Wu Kedi paused for a moment before continuing, the funny thing is that you, a dignified member of the Godly Saber sect, actually believed it. This is really too funny. Hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Shan's face once again darkened, but in the blink of an eye, it turned into a smile again. Silver Saber, you also saw that a useless guy like Wu Kedi is highly valued by the Wu clan. You can imagine how chaotic it is. After saying this, Li Shan paused for a moment before continuing, Silver Saber, listen to me. You must not go to the Wu clan. If you really go, then your future will be ruined. Just as Li Shan's voice fell, Wu Kedi, who was standing next to him, shouted angrily, Li Shan, don't talk nonsense. What's wrong with a person like me? Can't a person like me be highly valued? At this point, Wu Kedi's tone paused, and he suddenly let out a sneer before continuing, but you, Li Shan, your martial arts are not as good as mine, but you actually became the protector of the Godly Knife sect. Chapter 552. Shadowless hurriedly stepped in between the two and said loudly, Everyone, if you have a problem, you can solve it slowly. Don't fight and hurt the harmony. Li Mingshan pointed at Wu Kedi and said angrily, Wu Kedi is too much. Wu Kedi sneered, Li Mingshan, you're not any better. Shadowless hurriedly said, If you have any conditions, you can stand here and say it, but don't get angry. Shadowless paused for a moment before continuing, This matter has dragged on for too long. I hope that the two of you can quickly solve this problem so that we can leave this place as soon as possible. If anything happens after a long time, everything we've discussed will be useless. Li Mingshan pondered for a moment and nodded. Okay, I promise you. As long as Wu Kedi doesn't say anything annoying, I'll let him go for now. Hearing this, Wu Kedi looked up to the sky and laughed. Li Mingshan, do you think that I will be grateful to you if you let me go temporarily? Wu Kedi paused and glared at Li Mingshan before continuing, If it wasn't for the urgency of this matter, I wouldn't let you go either. Li Mingshan sneered, Wu Kedi, do you think I'm afraid of you? Wu Kedi said angrily, Do you think I'm afraid of you? Hearing that the two were still arguing, Shadowless suddenly sneered and said, Since you two only want to fight, then I won't stop you. Hurry up and fight. I'll go talk to Dao now. The two quickly calmed down and glared at each other. Then they turned their heads and stopped talking. Shadowless turned to Dao and said with a smile, Dao, you heard them. If you're satisfied with any of their conditions, just say it. Hearing Shadowless' words, Yin Dao opened his mouth but didn't say anything. He looked at the two people in front of him and hesitated again. Shadowless turned to look at Li Shan and said with a smile, Li Shan, repeat your conditions so that Yin Dao can hear you clearly. Li Mingshan nodded and looked at Yin Dao. He said loudly, Yin Dao, if you stay, not only can your level 25 equipment be exchanged for an elixir, I can also introduce you to the 6th disciple of the Godly Knife sect and ask him to take you as his disciple. You should be satisfied with these conditions. After hearing Li Mingshan's words, Yin Dao frowned, but didn't say anything. He seemed to remember that Wu Kadi's conditions were better. Li Mingshan was annoyed that Yin Dao didn't answer him. However, Shadowless was in front of him. Even if he wanted to rush over and question Yin Dao, he couldn't. He could only grit his teeth. Shadowless sneered in his heart. He turned to Wu Kadi and asked with a smile, Wu Kadi, tell us your conditions too. Let Silver Knife compare and see which one offers better conditions so he can make a choice as soon as possible. Wu Kadi coughed and said slowly, If Yin Dao joins the Wu clan, I will introduce him to the successor of the Wu clan and ask him to take Yin Dao as his disciple. Wu Kadi paused for a moment before continuing, Not only that, I can also exchange his level 25 equipment for an even higher level elixir to increase Yin Dao's strength. Shadowless turned to Yin Dao and asked with a smile, Yin Dao, both of them have their conditions. Yin Dao, both of them have stated their conditions. Whose conditions are you more satisfied with? Yin Dao thought for a moment and shook his head, I'm not satisfied with anyone. Shadowless didn't care about Yin Dao's words. After all, he wasn't the one who gave the conditions. Whatever conditions Yin Dao wanted had nothing to do with him. Shadowless turned to Li Mingshan and said with a smile, Li Mingshan, Yin Dao isn't satisfied with your conditions. Do you have any other conditions? Hearing Shadowless's words, Li Shan was about to say something, but he suddenly thought of something and sneered. He sneered and said, Yin Dao is a disciple of the Godly Knife faction. Why would I give him so many conditions? Shadowless was stunned when he heard Li Mingshan's answer. However, he quickly reacted and turned to Wu Kadi. Wu Kadi, Yin Dao isn't satisfied with your conditions. Do you have any better conditions? Yin Dao was a disciple of the Godly Knife faction. As long as he wasn't satisfied with either of the factions, it meant that Yin Dao was still a disciple of the Godly Knife faction. Whatever he had, he would still prioritize the Godly Knife faction. It was because of this that Li Mingshan wasn't in a hurry to give out conditions. If Li Mingshan could see this point, Wu Kadi could naturally see this point as well. Therefore, he could only add some better conditions to attract Yin Dao to join the Wu clan. Wu Kadi thought for a moment before turning to Yin Dao and saying softly, Yin Dao, Li Mingshan was right. The Wu clan does give preferential treatment to people with the surname Wu. As an outsider, you don't have much of a future in the Wu clan. Wu Kadi paused for a moment before continuing, If you want to have a future in the Wu clan, there is only one way. You can change your surname and become a member of the Wu clan. This way, you will naturally be valued by the Wu clan. After hearing Wu Kadi's words, Li Mingshan couldn't help but sneer and say, Wu Kadi, you really know how to lie. Do you think you can become a member of the Wu clan as long as you change your surname? Speaking up to here, Li Shan paused for a moment before continuing with a sneer, Wu Kadi, do you believe your own words? If it's that simple, then tell me, how many people in the Wu clan have changed their surnames? How many people in the Wu clan have changed their surnames? As long as you can name one person, then I, Li Shan, will be convinced by you. Hearing this, Li Shan sneered. After hearing Li Mingshan's question, Wu Kadi's face changed and said angrily, Li Mingshan, do you still want to keep your word? We have already agreed that we will each give our own conditions and no one can interfere with each other. What right do you have to question me? After hearing Wu Kadi's words, Li Mingshan shook his head and said indifferently, Wu Kadi, No matter what, Yin Dao is a disciple of the godly knife sect. I won't let him be deceived by you. Therefore, I will expose you and let Yin Dao see the truth. He won't believe your nonsense. Wu Kedi suddenly sneered. Li Mingshan, what right do you have to say that I am talking nonsense? As long as Yin Dao changes his surname to Wu, I will naturally have a way to make him a member of the Wu clan. What right do you have to say that I am talking nonsense? Hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Mingshan was stunned for a moment, but he quickly reacted and said with a sneer, Wu Kedi, don't tell me that your method is to make Yin Dao someone's adopted son? Chapter 553. After hearing Li Mingshan's question, Wu Kedi became angry. He pointed at Li Mingshan and said angrily, Li Mingshan, so what? As long as I have a way to make Yin Dao a member of the Wu family, why do you care what method I use? Li Mingshan shook his head. Although I don't want to care about your business, your method is a lie. How can I allow you to cheat Yin Dao like this? After hearing Li Mingshan's words, Wu Kedi ignored him and turned to look at Yin Dao. He smiled and said, Yin Dao, as long as you promise me this, I will definitely have a way to make you a member of the Wu family. Yin Dao, please believe me, I will definitely do it for you. Before Yin Dao could reply, Li Mingshan sneered and said, Wu Kedi, tell us a feasible method. Otherwise, no one will believe you. Yin Dao, tell me, am I right? If Wu Kedi can't come up with a solution, then he must be lying to you. After hearing Li Mingshan's words, Wu Kedi roared, Li Mingshan, why do you care what method I use? Anyway, I have a method. Li Mingshan didn't back down. He stared at Wu Kedi. Wu Kedi, I don't believe you have a method. Wu Kedi shook his head. I don't care if you believe me or not. As long as Yin Dao believes me, I will be satisfied. After hearing Wu Kedi's answer, Li Mingshan suddenly looked up and laughed. After a while, he suddenly lowered his head and looked at Wu Kedi. Wu Kedi, are you dreaming? Do you really think Yin Dao can't see through your lies? After saying this, Li Mingshan paused. He turned to look at Yin Dao and continued, Yin Dao, tell me, do you believe Wu Kedi's lies? After hearing Li Mingshan's question, Yin Dao frowned and thought for a moment. He then slowly shook his head and said, I don't believe it. After hearing Yin Dao's answer, Li Mingshan suddenly felt good. He turned to look at Wu Kedi and laughed. Wu Kedi, what do you think? Yin Dao, I've already seen through your trick. If you can't come up with a feasible solution, please take it back. Don't mention it again, lest you embarrass yourself here. Hearing this, Wu Kedi turned his head to look at Yin Dao and asked word by word, Yin Dao, do you really not believe that I can do this? Yin Dao shook his head. I don't believe it. Hearing Yin Dao's answer, Wu Kedi took a deep breath and slowly said, Yin Dao, that old man Li Shan asked me to explain to him, but I will never explain to him. But you're different. You're the young man I think highly of. As long as you want to know, I'll tell you. At this point, Wu Kedi paused for a moment before continuing, Yin Dao, the method I'm talking about is the same as before. As long as you become someone's adopted son and change your surname, you will naturally become a member of the Wu clan. Piak, piak, as soon as Wu Kedi finished speaking, there was a round of applause from the side. Then, Li Mingshan's words were heard. Wu Kedi, I really admire you. Are you going to say that becoming the adopted son of the Wu clan's successor will be the most helpful to him? After hearing Li Mingshan's words, Wu Kedi didn't get angry. He didn't even look at Li Mingshan. He was still looking at Yin Dao. After Li Mingshan finished speaking, Wu Kedi slowly said, Yin Dao, if you just want to be an ordinary person, then be the adopted son of an ordinary person. If you want to be a member of the upper class, then be the adopted son of a member of the upper class. At this point, Wu Kedi paused for a moment before continuing, Yin Dao, regarding this matter, I won't force you. Because everyone's choice is different. Some people like to live a peaceful life, some people like to live a glorious life. In short, everyone's thoughts are different, so everyone's choice will be different. Yin Dao, I respect your thoughts, but it's up to you to choose. Yin Dao, tell me what you want to choose. I will support you and help you achieve your wish. After hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Mingshan was stunned. He never thought that such a vulgar matter would be described by Wu Kedi in such a lofty manner. Really, after all, wasn't it just being the adopted son of someone else? Li Mingshan was a bit disdainful, but he couldn't refute it. He stood there blankly, staring at Yin Dao, waiting to hear his choice. Yin Dao was also stunned by Wu Kedi's words. He frowned deeply and his eyes kept flashing. He was hesitating about what choice to make. Wu Kedi was right. If he wanted to be an ordinary person, then be the adopted son of an ordinary person. If he wanted to be a member of the upper class, then be the adopted son of a member of the upper class. Seeing that no one spoke, Wu Kedi smiled and nodded. Yin Dao, don't worry. No matter what you choose, I will support you. Yin Dao thought for a long time, then suddenly raised his head and looked at Wu Kedi. He said loudly, I want to be the adopted son of a member of the upper class. Can you do it for me? Hearing this, Wu Kedi nodded with satisfaction and said confidently, Yin Dao, don't worry. As long as you have this thought, I will do my best to help you achieve it. Hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Mingshan couldn't hold it in anymore. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but he knew that if he held it in any longer, then the level 25 equipment would fly to the Wu family with Yin Dao. If it was any other disciple, a normal disciple, Li Mingshan wouldn't be worried. After all, it wasn't easy for someone from a sect to join another sect. If this matter was to be settled peacefully, then the two sects' upper echelons needed to contact each other and discuss it. Only then could it be settled peacefully. If he wanted to leave a sect and join another sect in private, if he didn't explain it well, it would be considered a betrayal of the sect, and he would be severely punished. As long as it was a normal person, they wouldn't choose to do this. However, was Yin Dao a normal disciple? No, Yin Dao had already gone crazy. In fact, he was quite crazy. Besides the level 25 equipment, there was nothing else in his mind. For Yin Dao, things like sex could be ignored a long time ago. After Li Mingshan's anger subsided, he took a deep breath and said slowly, Yin Dao, you can't leave the Godly Blade sect. Even if you want to leave, you have to wait until you go back and apply for this matter. Then you can leave after the upper echelons approve this matter. Otherwise, you will be considered a betrayal of the Godly Blade sect. You will be disgraced by everyone in the Godly Blade sect and will be hunted down. Chapter 554. After hearing Li Shan's words, Wu Kedi sneered. Li Shan, do you think your threat will work? Speaking up to hear, Wu Kedi paused. He turned his head to look at Yin Dao and continued, Yin Dao, don't be afraid. As long as you agree to join the Wu family, we will protect you. Hearing this, Li Shan was furious. He was about to reach for his blade when he suddenly had an idea. Yin Dao, don't you want to be outstanding? That's easy. As long as you can become the 6th disciple of the Godly Knife sect's leader, with the help of us brothers, your future will be limitless. Why would you want to join the Wu family? Speaking up to hear, Li Shan paused for a moment before continuing, Yin Dao, the Wu family is a strange place for you. Even if you go, you might not be able to get any benefits. Rather than that, you might as well stay in the Godly Knife sect. That way, you will have a better chance. Hearing this, Wu Kedi sneered, Yin Dao, don't listen to his nonsense. Although the Wu family is a strange place for you, don't forget that as long as you join the Wu family and change your surname to Wu, you will definitely have a bright future. If you don't believe me, you can ask around. When has the Wu family ever mistreated the disciples of the Wu family? Even if your talent is not good, I can guarantee that as long as you change your surname to Wu, you will definitely be put in an important position in the Wu family. Speaking up to hear, Wu Kudi paused for a moment. He gave Yin Dao a mysterious smile before continuing, Yin Dao, if you are lucky, maybe you can even become the successor of the Wu family? Hearing Wu Kudi's words, Li Shan sneered, Wu Kudi, stop dreaming. Isn't your surname Wu? Why didn't you become the successor of the Wu family? Don't talk nonsense here. No one will believe your words. Hearing this, Wu Kudi calmly said, although my surname is Wu, my luck is not good, so I can't become the successor of the Wu family. But brother Yin Dao is different. Maybe his luck is better than mine and he can become the successor of the Wu family? Li Mingshan sneered and shook his head. Wu Kudi, stop dreaming. At this point, Li Shan paused. He turned his head to look at Yin Dao before continuing, Wu Kudi, you must be dreaming. If it was so easy to be the successor of the Wu clan, then wouldn't everyone be the successor of the Wu clan? Yin Dao, it's better for you to stay. Staying in the Godly Knife sect to develop your future is actually the best choice for you. Wu Kudi clenched his teeth and was about to speak when Shadowless walked over. Wu Kudi, what good conditions do you have? Hurry up and say it. If you don't, Li Mingshan will win. Wu Kudi snorted. Wu Ying, don't worry. Li Mingshan can't beat me. He will never beat me. At this point, Wu Kudi turned his head and looked at Yin Dao. He lowered his voice and said, Brother Yin Dao, do you still remember what I told you earlier? Yin Dao shook his head. I don't remember. Wu Kudi saw this and said in an even lower voice, Brother Yin Dao, the successor of the Wu clan has a daughter. She is about the same age as you. If you perform well, you might become the son-in-law of the successor of the Wu clan. At that time, think about how much benefit it will bring to you. Yin Dao, do you understand what I mean? Although Wu Kudi's voice was low, Li Mingshan had been listening attentively, so he could still hear him clearly. Hearing this news, Li Mingshan was a bit anxious. He didn't think that the method he used earlier would be used by Wu Kudi. Thinking of this, Li Mingshan didn't dare to be negligent. He smiled and said, Yin Dao, don't be fooled by him. If there is such a good thing, do you think I can wait for you? Wu Kudi turned his head and looked at Li Mingshan. He said coldly, why not? Do you think that brother Yin Dao is that bad? Speaking of this, Wu Kudi paused. He turned his head and looked at Yin Dao again. He continued, Brother Yin Dao, I have confidence in you. With your ability, I believe that this matter will definitely succeed. Hearing this, Li Mingshan sneered in his heart. He wasn't an idiot like Yin Dao. This kind of ridiculous thing was impossible. How could the daughter of the Wu clan's successor marry an idiot like Yin Dao? Unless this woman looked like a pig. Not only that, but her mind was also like a pig. Only then would it be possible. Just when Li Mingshan didn't care, he suddenly heard Yin Dao speak. Wu Kudi, is what you said true? Do I really have a chance? Hearing this, Li Mingshan almost choked on his own saliva. Cough cough. Li Mingshan coughed a few times to suppress the uncomfortable feeling of being choked. Wu Kudi said, Brother Yin Dao, don't worry. As long as I help you, everything is possible. Hearing Wu Kudi's answer, Yin Dao was pleasantly surprised. He trembled and asked again, Wu Kudi, are you really willing to help me? Wu Kudi smiled faintly. Brother Yin Dao, why wouldn't I? You are a young man that I have high hopes for. Why wouldn't I help you? I only hope that, speaking of this, Wu Kudi paused for a while before continuing, I only hope that in the future, when Brother Yin Dao becomes rich, you will find a way to help us brothers. Then we won't be in vain for helping you. Hearing Wu Kudi's words, Yin Dao was overjoyed. He quickly said, Wu Kudi, don't worry. If I really become rich, I will definitely not forget you. I will definitely repay you. Cough cough. As soon as Yin Dao finished speaking, Li Shan coughed lightly and said, Don't worry. Yin Dao, do you remember the girl who got 8th place in last year's martial arts competition? Hearing Li Mingshan's words, Yin Dao's eyes lit up. He quickly nodded and asked, Are you talking about junior sister Li Qian? Li Mingshan nodded. That's right. I'm talking about her. Speaking of this, Li Mingshan paused for a while before continuing. Yin Dao, do you know Li Qian's surname? Hearing Li Mingshan's question, Yin Dao was stunned at first, then asked tentatively, Isn't Li Qian's surname Li? Hearing this, Li Mingshan nodded. That's right. Li Qian's surname is Li. Speaking of this, Li Mingshan paused for a while before continuing, Yin Dao, do you know my surname? Yin Dao was stunned again. After thinking carefully, he said doubtfully, Since you are called Li Mingshan, of course your surname is Li. Li Mingshan nodded with satisfaction and said with a smile, Do you know why both of us have the surname Li? Chapter 555. Hearing Li Shan's nonsensical questions, everyone present almost vomited. They all squinted at this old guy, wanting to see what he was planning. Hearing Li Shan's questions, Yin Dao was even angrier. Do you think I'm a fool? Thinking of this, Yin Dao said with some displeasure, How would I know? Li Shan smiled. Yin Dao, it doesn't matter. If you don't know, I can tell you. Speaking of this, Li Shan's tone paused. He turned his head and looked at Wu Kedi proudly, then continued. That's because Li Qian is a distant niece of mine. Hearing Li Shan's words, Wu Kedi was suddenly shocked. He looked at Li Shan in disbelief. His mouth was wide open, but he couldn't say a word. Although Wu Kedi couldn't speak, he kept shouting in his heart. Li Shan, you're really a shameless old man. In order to win over Yin Dao, you actually used such a despicable method. You even used your own niece to do it. Yin Dao was also stunned. Li Qian's appearance immediately appeared in his mind. During the competition of the younger generation, Li Qian won the 8th place with good result. Although Li Qian was ranked 8th, her limelight overshadowed the 1st place. The main reason for this was that Li Qian was beautiful. At that time, when Li Qian appeared, she immediately suppressed all the young disciples of the Godly Knife sect. Li Qian's opponent was also flustered. Of course, it wasn't because his martial arts were bad, but because he was stunned by Li Qian's beauty. He couldn't even use half of his martial arts before he was kicked off the stage by Li Qian. Thinking of Li Qian's peerless beauty, Yin Dao couldn't help swallowing his saliva. He turned his head to look at Li Shan and asked in a trembling voice, Lord Protector, what do you mean by that? Do you mean, seeing Yin Dao swallowing his saliva, Li Shan only felt disgusted, but he still had a smile on his face. Hearing Yin Dao's question, he slowly nodded. Yin Dao, I see that you are a promising talent. That's why I'm talking to you. I hope that you can seize this opportunity. Don't waste my good intentions. After hearing Li Shan's words, Yin Dao felt a wave of heat rising from the bottom of his heart, instantly rushing into his mind, making him fall into a state of confusion. Thinking that he really had a chance to be together with that beautiful woman, Silver Knife couldn't help but become a little infatuated. Unknowingly, saliva started to drip from the corner of his mouth. Looking at Yin Dao's unbearable appearance, Li Shan only felt his lower abdomen churning. The feeling of nausea became more and more intense, making him try his best to close his mouth to prevent himself from vomiting. When Wu Kedi saw Yin Dao's appearance, he knew something was wrong. Although he had never seen Li Qian's appearance, he could guess that the Li Qian mentioned by Li Mingshan must be quite beautiful. Otherwise, Yin Dao would drool just because of what Li Mingshan said. Seeing that Yin Dao's eyes were getting brighter and brighter, and the corner of his mouth was trembling, Wu Kedi suddenly shouted and interrupted Yin Dao's words. Seeing that Yin Dao was looking at him in confusion, Wu Kedi coughed and took this opportunity to quickly think about how to solve this problem. Yin Dao turned his head to look at Wu Kedi and asked with some confusion, Wu Kedi, what's the matter? Hearing this, Wu Kedi quickly nodded. Brother Yin Dao, although I haven't seen Li Qian, I think she must be very beautiful. Hearing Wu Kedi's question, Yin Dao wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth and nodded. She is indeed very beautiful. Among the women I've seen, she should be the most beautiful. Hearing Yin Dao's answer, Wu Kedi suddenly sighed. Brother Yin Dao, I thought you were a man of indomitable spirit, and would work hard for your future at all costs. At this point, Wu Kedi paused for a moment before continuing, but now it seems that I was wrong about you, Brother Yin Dao. You're also the kind of person who would disregard his future for a woman. You've really disappointed me. At the end of his words, Wu Kedi sighed again to express his strong disappointment in Yin Dao. Hearing Wu Kedi's sigh, Yin Dao's heart suddenly moved, and the confused feeling in his mind miraculously dissipated a lot. After hearing Li Mingshan's words, Yin Dao was surprised and happy. It seemed that he could not be together with Li Qian immediately. However, after hearing Wu Kedi's words, Yin Dao felt a little guilty. Was he really that kind of person? Would he give up his future for Li Qian? Yin Dao felt a deep sense of reluctance in his mind, but with great perseverance, he blocked this feeling of reluctance out of his mind. Yin Dao took a deep breath, then turned to look at Wu Kedi and asked slowly, Wu Kedi, what do you want to say? Just say it, I'm here to listen. Hearing Yin Dao's words, Wu Kedi was suddenly overjoyed and said with a smile, Brother Yin Dao, you are really good. I was right about you. At this point, Wu Kedi paused for a moment before continuing, Brother Yin Dao, as a man, you have to prioritize your own future. This is what a man should do. Brother Yin Dao, think about it, once your future is guaranteed, what kind of woman can't you have? Li Qian, Zhang Qian, they will all surround you. Brother Yin Dao, tell me, am I right or not? After listening to Wu Kedi's words, Yin Dao thought for a while and then slowly nodded. Wu Kedi, you are right. I should do this. Hearing the conversation between the two of them, Li Shan was about to explode from anger. He had shamelessly thrown out his niece, but he didn't expect that Li Mingshan would use this reason to block him. Li Mingshan was not reconciled. He took a few deep breaths, trying to think of a way to deal with Wu Kedi. At this time, Yin Dao turned to look at Li Mingshan and said apologetically, Law Protector, it seems that I have to waste your good intentions. After hearing Yin Dao's words, Li Mingshan was annoyed, but in front of so many people, he could only smile and nod. Yin Dao, it doesn't matter. Everyone has their own ambitions. Some people like their future, and some people like women. This can't be forced. Speaking of this, Li Mingshan's eyes suddenly lit up. He suddenly had an idea in his heart, so he continued to say with a smile, Yin Dao, your idea is good. Then I will congratulate you on your bright future. At this point, Li Shan paused for a moment before continuing, Unfortunately, I heard that someone is going to propose marriage to my niece. Have you heard about it? Chapter 556. Hearing Li Shan's words, Yin Dao was taken aback. Thinking of Li Qian's beauty, a feeling of reluctance arose in his heart. Looking at Yin Dao's regretful eyes, Li Shan sneered in his heart, but the expression on his face did not change. Li Shan said with a smile, I thought that you, Yin Dao, were a couple with my niece, but I didn't expect that you have no interest in her. Forget it. Speaking of this, Li Mingshan paused for a moment before continuing, When my niece gets married, I will definitely invite you to her wedding. At that time, please come. Hearing Li Shan's words, Yin Dao clenched his teeth. Protector, is what you said true? Is Miss Li Qian really going to get married? Li Shan nodded. Of course it's true. My niece is not young anymore. If she doesn't get married, she will become a joke. Yin Dao exclaimed, How could that be? Miss Li Qian is as beautiful as a flower. How could she become a joke? Everyone is envious of her. Li Shan turned his head to look at Yin Dao and said with a smile, Really? I don't think so. I thought that my niece wouldn't be able to get married. Yin Dao stared at Li Shan. Li Qian's figure constantly appeared in his mind. Such a beautiful woman would actually become someone else's wife? Yin Dao clenched his teeth even tighter. The feeling of reluctance in his heart became stronger, making him feel uncomfortable. After a long time, Yin Dao suddenly said, "Protector, is there really hope for Miss Li Qian and me?" Hearing Yin Dao's question, Li Shan pretended to have a strange expression and asked, "Yin Dao, don't you dislike my niece? Why do you ask this again?" Speaking of this, Li Shan paused and pretended to be suddenly enlightened. Then, he continued, "Yin Dao, are you afraid that my niece won't be able to get married?" "Yin Dao, don't worry. Even if you can't find a good one, can't you find a bad one? Yin Dao, you'd better not force yourself, lest it affects your future. I also feel bad in my heart." After hearing Li Mingshan's words, Yin Dao immediately exclaimed, "No, it's not like that. I'm just worried that Miss Li Qian won't like me. Really, I'm not lying. Please believe me, Mr. Protector." Hearing Yin Dao's words, Li Shan immediately pretended to be surprised. "Yin Dao, what are you saying? Are you trying to comfort me?" Hearing this, Yin Dao hurriedly said loudly, "I didn't, Lord Protector, I really like Miss Li Qian, please help us." Li Shan turned his head and looked at Yin Dao. His eyes were bright, as if he wanted to see if Yin Dao was telling the truth. After a long while, Li Shan sighed softly, "Yin Dao, you don't have to comfort me. With your talent, how could you like my niece?" Before Li Mingshan finished his words, he was interrupted by Silver Knife's sharp voice. "No, I'm telling the truth. I really like Miss Li Qian. I've liked Miss Li Qian for a long time. I was just afraid that Miss Li Qian would not like me, so I didn't dare to say it. Really, I'm telling the truth. Please believe me, Your Excellency." Li Shan turned his head and looked at Yin Dao, asking seriously, "Really? You're not lying to me?" Yin Dao immediately nodded hard. "Really, I'm not lying to you. I fell in love with Miss Li Qian at first sight." Li Shan nodded and suddenly said, "Are you willing to be with my niece and not leave the Godly Knife sect?" Hearing this, Yin Dao immediately nodded. "Really, as long as Mr. Protector is willing to help me, I won't leave the Godly Knife sect no matter what." Hearing Yin Dao's answer, Li Shan nodded with satisfaction. He turned his head to look at Wu Kedi and said with a smile, "Wu Kedi, what else do you want to say?" Wu Kedi's face was livid with anger, and even his hands were shaking. Hearing Li Shan's question, Wu Kedi gritted his teeth and shouted, "Li Shan, you win." Speaking of this, Wu Kedi paused and then continued, "But, do you think I can't deal with you like this? Humph, don't even think about it." After saying this, Wu Kedi suddenly turned his head to look at Yin Dao and said loudly, "Brother Yin Dao, since Li Shan said so, I won't hide it from you. To tell you the truth, you also have a daughter who is the successor of the Wu clan. Not only is she beautiful, her martial arts are also good, and she is also doted on by her father. If you can get her, even if you can't become the Wu clan's patriarch in the future, you will definitely become one of the most important figures in the Wu clan. Brother Yin Dao, I didn't want to say these words and wanted to wait until you join the Wu clan before we slowly discuss it. But that old bastard Li Shan is too hateful. He actually used such a despicable method to deceive you, so I have no choice but to say this." Hearing Wu Kedi's words, an uproar broke out. Some people simply couldn't believe their own ears. When Wu Kedi said this, even his uncle Wu Lai blushed a little. Wu Lai never thought that his nephew, Wu Kedi, who he had watched grow up, would actually be such a shameless person. Although others were incomparably shocked by this matter, Wu Kedi didn't care at all. At this point, he could be considered to have given it his all. As long as he succeeded, that level 25 equipment would be his. That was a piece of level 25 equipment. Even the Patriarch only had one piece. Normally, he wouldn't be willing to wear it and would only wear it when an important guest came to visit. Only then would he wear that piece of level 25 equipment to show off. Therefore, regardless of the reason, Wu Kedi had to give it his all. Yin Dao, who was originally extremely tempted by Li Qian, couldn't help but be stunned when he heard Wu Kedi's words. His heart began to move. Although a beauty was important, so was a future. Although Yin Dao was a madman, he also knew that without sufficient status and future, even if he obtained Li Qian, she might run away halfway. For the sake of safety, they had to have a good future and a good status. If he stayed in the godly saber sect, he would be able to obtain Li Qian, but it wouldn't be of much help to his own development. However, after hearing Wu Kedi's words, Yin Dao began to be tempted. As long as he joined the Wu clan, became the disciple of the Wu clan's successor, then became the son-in-law of the Wu clan's successor. With this identity, his status in the Wu clan would definitely not be low in the future. Most importantly, Wu Kedi had clearly stated that the daughter of the Wu clan's successor wouldn't be ugly, but as beautiful as a flower. Thinking of this, Yin Dao suddenly raised his head and looked at Wu Kedi. Wu Kedi, is what you said true? Chapter 557. Hearing Yin Dao's question, Wu Kedi sneered in his heart. If he wanted to deal with a small silver knife, wouldn't that be an easy matter? Wu Kedi smiled and waved his hand. Brother Yin Dao, when have I ever lied to you? If you can tell me, I'll immediately turn around and leave. I won't have the face to see you. Hearing Wu Kedi's words, Yin Dao nodded. He had to admit that Wu Kedi did not lie to him. Seeing Yin Dao nod, Wu Kedi slowly said, Brother Yin Dao, come, I'm telling you the truth. The daughter of the Wu family's successor will not disappoint you. If you don't believe me, you can ask around. There are at least 800 people in the south region who want to pursue her. Brother Yin Dao, I see that you're talented and hardworking, so I'm talking to you about this. Don't let go of this good opportunity. Yin Dao thought for a long time before swallowing his saliva. With a hoarse voice, he asked, Wu Kedi, since there are so many people pursuing her, do you think I have a chance? Hearing this, Wu Kedi laughed. Brother Yin Dao, you have to have confidence in yourself. You're someone I have my eyes on, so I'll definitely help you. Speaking up to here, Wu Kedi paused for a moment before continuing, You're different from them. Because you have me, your success rate is much higher than theirs. Yin Dao hesitated and said, But my martial arts aren't good. I'm afraid I can't compare to them. Hearing Yin Dao's words, Wu Kedi was stunned. For a moment, he couldn't answer Yin Dao's words. What Yin Dao said was the truth. Those who wanted to pursue the daughter of the Wu family's successor were all geniuses. Which one of them wasn't a young hero? For someone like Yin Dao, he probably wouldn't even dare to think about trying. However, Wu Kedi couldn't tell Yin Dao the truth, because everything was impossible. Yin Dao wanted to marry the daughter of the Wu family's successor. This was a huge joke. No one would take it seriously. The only person who would take it seriously was Yin Dao. Now that Yin Dao recognized his own shortcomings, he didn't have any confidence. Therefore, Wu Kedi had to give Yin Dao confidence, and let him join the Wu family and give him his level 25 equipment. Although Wu Kedi thought so, he felt extremely helpless in his heart. No matter how one looked at it, Yin Dao was indeed very bad. It was not just bad but very bad. However, this was not the time to talk about which aspect of Silver Knife was weak, but which aspect of Silver Knife was strong. However, in which aspect was the Silver Knife strong? Wu Kedi frowned and pondered for a long time. Miraculously, he found that he couldn't find any good points about Yin Dao. In terms of appearance, Silver Knife was at most an ordinary person. In terms of martial arts, Yin Dao was even worse. In terms of talent, Silver Blade was even more lacking. In terms of family background, Yin Dao's family was not strong either. Wu Kedi felt a headache coming on after examining the Silver Knife from head to toe. He couldn't find any good points about the Silver Knife. Seeing that Wu Kadi wasn't willing to answer his question, Silver Knife lost even more confidence and said dejectedly, Wu Kadi, thank you for your kindness, but it seems that I really can't do it. No, Yin Dao, you misunderstood. Just as Yin Dao finished speaking, he was interrupted by Wu Kadi's shocked voice. Taking advantage of this short period of time, Wu Kadi's eyes lit up and he hurriedly said with a smile, Yin Dao, why can't I? Don't forget, when the time comes, you can use your equipment to exchange for a spiritual medicine. Speaking up to here, Wu Kadi paused for a moment before continuing, Brother Yin Dao, as long as you eat the spiritual medicine you exchange for, then your martial arts will skyrocket. When the time comes, won't that be your advantage? Hearing Wu Kadi's words, Yin Dao's eyes also lit up. Only now did he suddenly remember that there was still a level 25 equipment. If he could exchange this level 25 equipment for a good quality spiritual medicine, when the time came, as long as he ate it, his martial arts would definitely skyrocket. As long as his martial arts were high, then wouldn't that be his advantage? Thinking up to here, Yin Dao only felt a sense of pride rise from the bottom of his heart. He couldn't help but look up to the sky and laugh. His laughter was so carefree that everyone couldn't help but be stunned. Yin Dao's heart was extremely comfortable. It was as if he had already eaten a peerless spiritual medicine and increased his martial arts by many years, becoming an expert of a generation. Wu Kadi coldly looked at Yin Dao, who was laughing towards the sky. After Yin Dao stopped laughing, he said in a deep voice, Brother Yin Dao, since you have thought it through, then you should also understand that joining the Wu clan is the best choice. Yin Dao, quickly go and report this news to your Lord Protector. After that, we will leave this place and complete your dream as soon as possible. After hearing Wu Kadi's words, Yin Dao's face was filled with excitement as he nodded his head. He turned his head and looked at Li Shan. Just as he was about to speak, he was stopped by Li Shan with a cold expression. Yin Dao, have you thought it through? Hearing Li Shan's question, Yin Dao firmly nodded his head and slowly said, Lord Protector, I have thought it through. Only by joining the Wu clan can I obtain what I want. Hearing this, Li Shan slowly nodded his head. Although he looked calm on the surface, his heart was in an uproar. Yin Dao wanted to leave the Godly Knife faction? A small person like Yin Dao leaving the Godly Knife faction was not a big deal in Li Shan's eyes. However, Yin Dao was different. He had that level 25 equipment and that was the key. Once Yin Dao left the Godly Knife faction, he would naturally not be able to obtain that level 25 equipment. Li Shan was not willing to accept this. He had spent so much effort and did not hesitate to have a falling out with the fire spirit to obtain that level 25 equipment. Now that Wu Kadi had taken advantage of it, Li Shan would definitely not accept this. However, Wu Kadi's conditions were already so high. He had even married the Wu clan's successor's daughter to Yin Dao. Then, wouldn't he have to offer even higher conditions to pull Yin Dao back? Li Shan racked his brains and desperately tried to think of a reason to attract the silver knife. Wu Kadi's conditions were already at the peak. If Li Shan wanted to offer even higher conditions, it would be impossible. However, even if he knew it was impossible, Li Shan still had to think of a way. Otherwise, that level 25 equipment would fly away. Yin Dao saw that Li Shan did not speak, so he hurriedly asked, Lord Protector, if I leave the Godly Knife faction now, you won't stop me, right? After hearing Yin Dao's words, Li Shan's eyebrows couldn't help but twitch. His hand involuntarily wanted to grab the handle of the knife, but he resisted. His fingers only grabbed the air, and did not grab the handle. Li Shan was very clear that now was not the time to fight. The most important thing was to think of a way to deal with Wu Kadi. Chapter 558. Li Shan thought for a moment, then turned to look at Yin Dao and sighed. Yin Dao, do you know why I let you become a disciple of the Godly Knife sect's sixth disciple? Yin Dao shook his head. I don't know. Li Shan said with a wry smile. The sixth disciple of the godly knife sect's sixth disciple is the weakest among his 6 fellow apprentices. If that's the case, why would I let you become his disciple? Haven't you thought about it? After hearing Li Shan's words, Yin Dao shook his head again. Lord Protector, I really don't know what the reason is. Li Shan sighed and said with a self-deprecating tone, I thought you would understand my painstaking efforts, but I didn't think it was just my wishful thinking. After hearing Li Shan's words, Yin Dao was at a loss and hurriedly asked, Lord Protector, is there a reason for letting me become a disciple of the godly knife sect's 6th disciple? Li Shan nodded. Yin Dao, to tell you the truth, if there wasn't a very important reason, why would I let you become a disciple of the godly knife sect's 6th disciple? After asking this, Li Shan's tone paused. He didn't wait for Yin Dao to answer and continued to speak. The godly knife sect's 6th disciple has something that no one else has. Yin Dao, do you know? Yin Dao shook his head. I don't know, please tell me, Lord Protector. Li Shan nodded. Well, since you don't know, then I'll tell you. In the past, the godly knife sect's 6th disciple was given a weapon by the godly knife sect's master. This weapon's name is Sky Chopping Blade. Have you ever heard of it? After hearing Li Shan's words, Yin Dao shook his head again. I'm just an ordinary disciple of the godly knife sect. How would I know the secrets of the godly knife sect? Li Shan also knew that Yin Dao would not know, so he continued. I remember that in the past, the sect master of the godly knife sect would give this Sky Chopping Blade to his most valued disciple, hoping that he would inherit the position of the sect master in the future. Therefore, this Sky Chopping Blade is equivalent to a token of the sect master. Whoever obtains this Sky Chopping Blade will have a high chance of becoming the sect master of the godly knife sect. After saying this, Li Shan turned his head to look at Yin Dao and said with a smile, Yin Dao, now you understand why I want you to become a disciple of the godly knife sect's 6th disciple. After hearing Li Shan's words, Yin Dao's eyes suddenly lit up as he asked in surprise, Lord Protector, could it be that you have already allowed me to join the godly knife sect's 6th disciple? Could it be for that Sky Chopping Blade? Li Shan nodded. This is only one of the reasons. Although the godly knife sect's 6th disciple's martial arts are not the strongest among the 6 disciples, the main reason is because he is the youngest. Therefore, in terms of martial arts and experience, it is inevitable that there will be some inadequacies. If you can join his sect, as long as he seriously instructs you, your martial arts will definitely advance by leaps and bounds. I believe that as long as you practice diligently, your martial arts will definitely advance by leaps and bounds. At that time, as long as you obtain the Sky Chopping Blade, in my opinion, the next godly knife sect's 6th disciple will most likely be the godly knife sect's 6th disciple. And if you obtain the Sky Chopping Blade, you will have a 70% to 80% chance of becoming the next sect master. After listening to Li Shan's words, Yin Dao only felt his heart beat faster, his thoughts fluctuating. He only felt a warm current surging from the bottom of his heart, instantly making him excited. Sky Chopping Blade, if he could obtain the Sky Chopping Blade, he would have a 70% to 80% chance of becoming the next sect master. The godly knife sect's influence was huge, and there were countless disciples. If he could become the sect master of the godly knife sect, that would be something that he would want. Thinking of this, Yin Dao only felt a burst of dizziness, making him so excited that he could not control himself. After a long while, Yin Dao's emotions slowly calmed down a little. He raised his head, slowly turned his gaze to Li Shan, and asked in a trembling voice, Lord Protector, is what you said true? Hearing Yin Dao's question, Li Shan nodded. Of course it is true. If you don't believe in the Sky Chopping Blade, you can ask the other disciples, and you will know if what I said is true or not. Just as Li Shan's voice fell, and before Yin Dao could answer, Wu Kedi on the side let out a sneer. After sneering, Wu Kedi coldly said, "Yin Dao, don't listen to Li Shan's nonsense. Although the sky chopping blade is true, let me tell you, you will absolutely not be able to obtain the sky chopping blade." Hearing Wu Kedi's words, Yin Dao was suddenly startled. His excited mood was like being splashed with cold water, quickly calming down. "Wu Kedi, what did you say?" Wu Kedi turned his head to look at Yin Dao and said with a sneer, "Yin Dao, what Li Shan said is false. You will not be able to obtain the sky chopping blade." Hearing this, Yin Dao looked at Li Shan in disbelief, and then turned his head to look at Wu Kedi, and asked in a trembling voice, "Wu Kedi, why can't I obtain the sky chopping blade?" Hearing Yin Dao's question, Wu Kedi sneered, and turned his head to look at Li Shan. "Li Shan, tell me, how do you want Yin Dao to obtain the sky chopping blade?" Hearing Wu Kedi's question, Li Shan suddenly froze, and thought in his heart, "How do I know how to obtain the sky chopping blade? If I could obtain the sky chopping blade, I would have already obtained it. Why would I wait until now, and still be a protector of the godly blade sect?" Although Li Shan thought this in his heart, but in front of Yin Dao, he naturally could not say this. He pondered for a moment and then slowly said, "Wu Kedi, how I let Yin Dao obtain the sky chopping blade is our godly blade sect's business. It seems that he does not need an outsider like you to interfere." Hearing this, Wu Kedi turned his head to look at Yin Dao and sneered, "Yin Dao, the sky chopping blade is true. Although I am not a disciple of the godly blade sect, I know that the sky chopping blade is very important to the godly blade sect. What Li Shan said is also true. In the past, among the disciples who obtained the sky chopping blade, 90% of them did become the sect leader of the godly blade sect. This is absolutely true. Yin Dao, if you can obtain the sky chopping blade, there is a very high chance that you can become the sect leader of the godly blade sect. All of this is true." After hearing Wu Kedi's words, Yin Dao asked doubtfully, "Since what the protector said is true, then why do you say that I can't obtain the sky chopping blade?" Hearing this, Wu Kedi sneered again, "Yin Dao, the sky chopping blade is very important to the godly blade sect. Do you think that such an important thing will fall into your hands?" Just as Wu Kedi finished speaking, before Yin Dao could answer, Li Shan had already spoken first. "Wu Kedi, don't look down on people. What makes you think that Yin Dao can't obtain the sky chopping blade?" Chapter 559. After hearing Li Shan's question, Wu Kedi once again sneered, "Li Shan, you can fool Yin Dao, but if you want to fool me, it won't be easy." Hearing this, Li Shan sneered, "Wu Kedi, do you look down on Yin Dao that much?" Speaking up to here, Li Shan's tone paused. He didn't wait for Wu Kedi's reply and continued, "Wu Kedi, although you don't think highly of Yin Dao, I think highly of Yin Dao. Yin Dao was young and promising. He was hard-working and patient. Plus, he was tenacious. These were all advantages that others didn't have. I believe that as long as Yin Dao meets a famous teacher, with these advantages of his, he will definitely become outstanding. It is because of these reasons that I decided to help Yin Dao, to let him display his advantages and achieve his dream." At the end, Li Shan turned his head to look at Yin Dao and smiled. "Yin Dao, I think highly of you and want to help you. I hope you won't disappoint me." After Li Shan finished speaking, before Yin Dao could speak, Wu Kedi sneered again. "Li Shan, then tell me, how do you want Yin Dao to get the sky chopping blade?" Hearing this, Li Shan shook his head. "As long as I tell you, I naturally have a way to let Yin Dao get the sky chopping blade. However, this is the secret of the godly knife sect, and I will never let an outsider like you know." After hearing Li Shan's words, Wu Kedi suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed. After laughing, he lowered his head to look at Li Shan and said coldly, "Li Shan, I don't think this is a secret. It should be that you have no way to let Indao get the sky chopping blade. Everything you said is fake. You are lying to Indao. Li Shan, am I right? Seeing Wu Kedi's aggressive tone, Li Shan immediately became angry. Wu Kedi, don't talk nonsense. How can we let an outsider like you know about our godly knife sex secret? After saying this, Li Shan turned his head to look at Indao. The anger on his face immediately disappeared and was replaced by a smile. Indao, don't listen to Wu Kedi's nonsense. Why would I lie to you? Hearing this, Wu Kedi turned his head to look at Indao and said lightly, since Li Shan said, he didn't lie to you, then let him tell you, how can he let you get the sky chopping blade? After hearing Wu Kedi's words, Indao couldn't help but frown. He turned his head to look at Li Shan and asked, Lord Protector, do you have a way for me to obtain the heaven-cleaving saber? Seeing that Indao was really asking him a question, he felt a bit annoyed in his heart. However, at this moment, he could not really get angry at Indao. He could only continue to maintain the smile on his face as he spoke softly. Indao, I won't lie to you. As long as I say this, I will definitely find a way for you to obtain the heaven-chopping blade. Wu Kedi is just an outsider. If you want to obtain the heaven-chopping blade, it will involve the secrets of the godly blade sect. How could we let an outsider know about these secrets? At this point, Li Shan paused for a moment before continuing. Indao, don't worry. Once this matter is over, I will immediately tell you the method. After hearing Li Shan's words, Wu Kedi sneered. Li Shan, don't try to cheat Silver Dao. What kind of secret do you have? I think you're just talking nonsense. Hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Mingshan was really angry. He slowly turned his head to look at Wu Kedi and asked word by word, Wu Kedi, since you want to know how I let Indao get the sky chopping blade, then tell me how you let Indao get the daughter of the Wu family's successor. After hearing Li Shan's question, Wu Kedi was stunned. For a moment, he was speechless. Seeing Wu Kedi's expression, Li Shan sneered in his heart. He didn't want to expose Wu Kedi's trick, but Wu Kedi didn't know what was good for him. He actually dared to compete with him. Right now, everyone was trying to cheat Indao. Therefore, the one who offered the highest price would win. Wu Kedi had just said that he would give the daughter of the Wu family's successor to Indao. Li Shan didn't expose him, but Wu Kedi shamelessly wanted to expose him. Thinking of this, Li Shan clenched his teeth. Since Wu Kedi wanted to fight with him, then let's have a good fight. Since Wu Kedi said that he couldn't let Indao get the sky chopping blade, then tell him how you would let Indao get the daughter of the Wu family's successor. After a while, Wu Kedi finally regained his composure. He looked up at Li Shan and sneered. Li Shan, how I let Indao get the daughter of the Wu family's successor is also my secret. I can't tell anyone else. Seeing that Wu Kedi was using his own method to deal with him, Li Shan sneered in his heart. Wu Kedi, I think you are talking nonsense. How noble is the Wu family's successor? I think you don't even know what his daughter looks like. How could you make peace for Indao? I think you are just talking nonsense to deceive Indao. Hearing Li Shan's question, Wu Kedi hurriedly shook his head. Li Shan, when did I deceive Indao? Everything I said is true. Do you think that with Dao's condition, he wouldn't be able to get the daughter of the Wu family's successor? After hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Shan turned his head to look at Dao and said with a smile, Don't listen to Wu Kedi's nonsense. How noble is the Wu family's successor? Since he doesn't care about the Wu family's affairs and only focuses on practicing martial arts every day, it wouldn't be easy for outsiders to take a look at him, let alone the daughter of the Wu family's successor. Speaking up to here, Li Shan paused for a moment before continuing. Although I haven't seen the daughter of the Wu family's successor, if I'm not wrong, even among the Wu family's disciples, there are probably many who haven't seen the daughter of the Wu family's successor. Indao, think about it. Under such circumstances, how could Wu Kedi fulfill his conditions? He couldn't even meet the daughter of the Wu clan's successor. How could he say that he could mediate between the two of you? Isn't that just nonsense? After hearing Li Shan's words, Wu Kedi clenched his teeth and said, Li Shan, you're right. Our Wu family's successor doesn't see many outsiders. But don't forget, I'll let Yin Dao become his disciple first, and then slowly get in touch with his daughter. Don't tell me that by doing this, he won't be able to see his daughter? Li Shan sneered. Wu Kedi, then tell me, in this state, how can you make the Wu family's successor accept Yin Dao as his disciple? Hearing Li Shan's question, Wu Kedi sneered and shook his head. Li Shan, aren't you meddling a bit too much? I've already told you, and you still want to ask? Chapter 560. Li Shan said coldly, if it's really as easy as you say, then he would have thousands of disciples. Wu Kedi, stop lying. Wu Kedi heard this and said angrily, lying? Li Shan, why would I lie? I can do all this, so I told Yin Dao. Unlike you, you talk nonsense all day long, even deceiving your own disciples. Hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Shan turned his head and glared at him. Then he said coldly, who are you calling a liar? Wu Kedi sneered, there are only two of us talking here. Do you think I can talk to someone else? Li Shan glared at Wu Kedi. After a long time, he suddenly sighed. Wu Kedi, I suddenly feel that you are simply too annoying. Wu Kedi heard this and nodded. I feel the same. Hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Shan's eyes suddenly flashed with a cold light. Since it's like this, then let's have a fight. Let's vent our anger first. Wu Kedi, what do you think? Hearing Li Shan's words, Wu Kedi suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed. After laughing, he slowly nodded. Okay, I also have the same idea. Speaking up to here, Wu Kedi's tone paused for a while before he continued, if I don't beat you up, I really can't vent my anger. Hearing this, Li Shan nodded and didn't speak anymore. He slowly held the hilt of his saber. His eyes were like lightning, closely watching Wu Kedi's every move. Although Wu Kedi said it casually, he didn't dare to be careless. Li Shan's martial arts were definitely not below his, or even above his. Facing such an opponent, Wu Kedi absolutely didn't dare to underestimate him. This time, Li Shan didn't quickly draw his saber. Instead, he slowly pulled it out and raised it in front of his face. Wu Kedi, you really made me angry. This time, I won't hold back. I hope you must be careful. If you regret now, it's not too late. When I make my move, even if I want to hold back, I won't be able to do it. After hearing Li Shan's words, Wu Kedi suddenly laughed. Li Shan, I didn't expect us to have some similarities. At this point, Wu Kedi paused for a moment before continuing, what you just said is exactly what I was thinking. Whenever I look at you, I can't help but want to beat you into a pulp to get rid of the hatred in my heart. Therefore, I won't hold back anymore. I hope you know what you're doing. Don't be beaten into a pile of mud by me just because you're big, haha. Although Wu Kedi was laughing wildly, he did not dare to be careless. The person in front of him was the protector of the Godly Sword sect, a famous expert in the South region. If he dared to be careless, he would definitely lose. Wu Kedi did not want to be defeated in front of so many people. He wanted to win. This time, he had to win because only by winning would he be able to obtain the greatest benefit. Not to mention the other benefits, just the silver knife. If Wu Kedi really defeated Li Shan, the silver knife would definitely be yearning for it. Wu Kedi would then guide it with his words, and it would naturally be a success. However, if he lost, he could forget about the level 25 equipment. Therefore, Wu Kedi had to win, and win beautifully. Thinking of this, Wu Kedi slowly clenched his fist. At the same time, his chi began to circulate crazily, gathering in his arms in the blink of an eye. Li Shan did not seem to look at Wu Kedi. His eyes were always on his knife. Although this knife was not a famous knife, it was a good knife that Li Shan did his best to obtain. The blade was as bright as snow, flashing a cold light in the darkness. Holding this knife, Li Shan's originally agitated mood suddenly calmed down. As long as he had this knife in his hand, he was not afraid of anyone. Although he might not be able to win, his heart was filled with confidence. The knife in Li Shan's hand trembled, and one by one, it brought out the light of a knife. In this battle there was no right or wrong, only benefits. Whoever could defeat the other party would have the absolute right to speak. There was also a high chance that the level 25 equipment would fall into the hands of the victor. Therefore, both Wu Kedi and Li Shan wanted to win. But both of them knew that things were not that simple. Their opponent was a famous figure in the South region, and was definitely not an opponent that could be easily defeated. Therefore, they had to give it their all and try to defeat their opponent in the first round. Seeing that the two were about to fight again, Shadowless knew that this was not good. Just as he was about to stop them again, he saw Li Shan's knife light suddenly become brighter, turning into a light that flew towards Wu Kedi. At the same time, Wu Kedi also let out a low roar. The chi that had already gathered in his arms turned into a wave of chi that went towards Li Shan's knife light. Seeing this, Shadowless could only sigh. He stopped moving and stood there, watching the result of the battle. But the knife light and the fist finally collided, making a muffled sound. After the muffled sound, both of them coldly snorted at the same time and were sent flying back. As soon as Li Shan landed, he did not care about the feeling of being sent flying. He immediately waved his knife again, jumping into the air and slashing towards Wu Kedi. Seeing this, Wu Kedi suddenly let out a roar. The chi in his fist burst out again, meeting Li Shan's knife light head-on. But the fist and the knife light collided again. Li Shan's body was suddenly sent flying, but Wu Kedi did not move at all. However, he was only sent crouching down for a bit before standing up again. Although Wu Kedi was not sent flying, he was actually at a greater disadvantage. After Li Shan received this recoil, his whole body immediately retreated, reducing a bit of this violent power, but Li Shan did not have this opportunity, and directly came into contact with the impact of this force. Looking at Li Shan, who was far away, Wu Kedi took a deep breath. He wanted to chase after him, but the churning in his stomach made him very uncomfortable. Helpless, he could only stand still and silently circulate his chi to heal his injured organs. Although Wu Kedi was at a great disadvantage, Li Shan was not feeling well either. The two of them had collided head-on. Even if he had a peerless knife skill, he could not use it. Li Shan took a deep breath and calmed his trembling stomach. Just as he was about to attack again, he suddenly felt a shadow flash in front of him. Shadowless was already in front of him, blocking his path. Li Shan, are you crazy? What good will this do you? Hearing Shadowless's words, Li Shan's heart suddenly moved. Only then did he realize that he had been too excited. The key now was not the battle with Wu Kedi, but the level 25 equipment. Thinking of this, Li Shan immediately withdrew his knife. Chapter 561. Li Mingshan withdrew his saber, so Wu Kedi naturally didn't want to attack anymore. He was still suffering from the shock from before, and if he forcefully used his Zhen Qi again, he was afraid that his injuries would worsen, and at that time it wouldn't be easy to deal with. Shadowless looked at the two and sighed. I heard the promise you two just made. Now, which one of you can tell me how to fulfill your promise? Li Shan heard this and sneered. Since I said it, I naturally have a way to fulfill it. Li Shan paused for a moment and then continued, but this is our godly knife sect's secret, why should I tell you? After hearing Li Shan's words, Shadowless didn't care. He just nodded and said with a smile, Since you both said it's your sect's secret, then don't pursue it. I think, in the future, no matter what you say, don't pursue it. This way there won't be any disputes. What do you think? Li Shan naturally had no problem, and immediately nodded. Shadowless, don't worry, as long as Wu Kadi doesn't trouble me, I won't trouble him. Shadowless nodded, and turned to look at Wu Kadi. Wu Kadi, what about you? Wu Kadi wiped the trace of blood from the corner of his mouth, and nodded. I have no objections. Just now, Wu Kadi was at a disadvantage when fighting Li Shan. Li Shan had a blade in his hand, and Wu Kadi was barehanded. Comparing the two, Li Shan naturally had a big advantage. Which was more powerful, a fist or a blade? There was absolutely no doubt about it. Even the most common blade was more useful than a fist. If it was a normal fight, the barehanded Wu Kadi naturally wouldn't fight Li Shan with a blade. When Wu Kadi's fist and Li Mingshan's saber collided, Wu Kadi had to launch an even more powerful true qi in order to protect his fist from being cut off by Li Mingshan's saber. In this way, he would suffer an invisible loss. If Wu Kadi didn't fight Li Shan head-on, and used other methods, he would save a lot of energy and have a better chance of winning. Wu Kadi secretly hated himself for being careless, but since it was already like this, even if he regretted, it was too late. After hearing Shadowless's words, he could only nod. Shadowless smiled and said, "Okay, let's renegotiate then." Shadowless paused and turned to look at Silver Blade before continuing, "Brother Silver Blade, you'll have to see if you're satisfied with their conditions." At the end of his speech, Shadowless suddenly winked at Silver Blade, giving him a meaningful look. While Dao was staring at Shadowless's back in a daze, Li Shan suddenly smiled and said, "Dao, you are a disciple of our godly knife sect. I hope you can stick to your beliefs and contribute more to the godly knife sect. Let the future disciples of the godly knife sect spread your name." Hearing Li Shan's words, Dao's mind suddenly shook. Although these words didn't have any practical content, they were very encouraging, making Dao's mind heat up. Wu Kadi slowly walked up. He first glanced at Li Mingshan, then turned to look at Dao and said with a smile, "Brother Silverblade, you must make the right choice. This has a lot to do with your future." Here, Wu Kadi paused for a bit before continuing. Although the godly knife sect is powerful and this is its biggest advantage, it is also its weakness. The godly knife sect has countless disciples. From another point of view, if the godly knife sect wants to train their disciples, it is impossible for them to treat everyone equally. This is because they have too many disciples. If they treat everyone equally, no one will benefit. Therefore, they can only use limited resources to train a very small number of talented disciples. Dao, what do you think your talent is in the godly knife sect? Is it the kind that can be heavily trained? After hearing Wu Kadi's words, Dao's face immediately became gloomy. He shook his head and said with a hoarse voice, "No." Hearing Dao's answer, Wu Kadi nodded, "Just as I guessed. Brother Silver Blade, although you are diligent, strong, and brave, your talent in martial arts is not enough. Therefore, it is almost impossible for you to be heavily trained." Here, Wu Kadi paused for a bit before continuing, "But our Wu clan is different. We don't have many people in the Wu clan to begin with, so we use elite tactics. Although we don't have many disciples, all of them are experts in martial arts. Because we don't have many people, almost everyone can get resources from our Wu clan. This is the advantage of having fewer people. Brother Dao, if you join our Wu clan, we will definitely treat you well. Even if you don't get any special treatment, we will definitely give you more resources for martial arts training than you would have in the godly knife sect. You can rest assured about this. Moreover, you have my help. If you can become a disciple of the Wu clan's successor, you will get more resources and your future will be better. Brother Silver Blade, think about it carefully. Whether you want to become an elite disciple of the Wu clan or an ordinary disciple of the godly knife sect, it is all up to you. After hearing Wu Kedi's words, Yin Dao could not help but grit his teeth. He admitted that what Wu Kedi said was true, because this was what he experienced in the Godly Knife sect. There were too many disciples in the Godly Knife sect. Just like what Wu Kedi said, most of them were not heavily trained by the sect and could only develop helplessly. The disciples that were heavily trained by the Godly Knife sect were basically taken in as disciples by the higher-ups of the Godly Knife sect. With careful guidance, the gap between these elite disciples and ordinary disciples quickly widened. Ever since Yin Dao entered the Godly Knife sect, he had not received any resources to train. The only advantage he had was the ordinary knife in his hand. On the other hand, the disciples that were heavily trained by the Godly Knife sect were completely different. After not seeing them for a few months, Yin Dao could clearly see that not only had their weapons improved, but their martial arts had also improved. Comparing the two, Yin Dao was even more miserable. He felt that his future was bleak. Yin Dao raised his head and looked at Wu Kedi. In his heart, he was carefully thinking about what he had just said. The Wu clan had fewer people, and because of that, they were able to get more benefits. Yin Dao actually agreed with this point. The Godly Knife sect actually had a lot of resources, but they had a lot of people. Although there seemed to be a lot of resources in the warehouse, when it was distributed to an individual, it was actually not much. The Wu clan was different. They had fewer people, so the resources that they could distribute to an individual were naturally more. Yin Dao never thought that martial arts could only be practiced diligently. He had practiced diligently for so long, but he still did not have any results. Chapter 562. If hard work and hard work worked, Yin Dao was sure that he would have been invincible long ago. It was only useful for disciples of the same level and treatment. If he wanted to compete with disciples of a higher level, he would definitely not even think about it. Therefore, Yin Dao was very clear that resources were the way to go. With resources, a disciple could become an expert. Without resources, an expert could become a disciple of the same level. Therefore, Wu Kedi did not lie. The Wu family had few people, so each disciple would definitely get more resources than others. Seeing Yin Dao's expression change, Wu Kedi sneered in his heart, but the expression on his face did not change at all. He still had a smile on his face. Yin Dao, think about it. Originally, there were many stories in our martial arts world. Buying a disciple would give you some. If you can become the disciple of the Wu family's successor, how many benefits would you get? I think even if I don't say it, you should know. After hearing Wu Kedi's words, Yin Dao naturally knew that if he became the disciple of the Wu family's successor, he would naturally get more benefits from the original foundation. Thinking of this, Yin Dao already made a choice in his heart. That was to join the Wu family and strive to become the disciple of the Wu family's successor. From then on, he would step onto the peak of life. Li Shan, who was standing on the side, knew that if he did not speak, Yin Dao would definitely run away, so he quickly said, "Yin Dao, wait a moment." Speaking of this, Li Shan's tone paused. He quickly thought in his heart before continuing, "Yin Dao, you have to think clearly before making a decision. Our Godly Knife sect has many disciples. Although we will treat them differently when distributing resources, don't forget that no matter when, if you can become the disciple of the Godly Knife sect's sixth disciple, you will definitely get the most resources. Yin Dao, you shouldn't doubt this, right?" Speaking of this, Li Shan did not wait for Yin Dao's reply and continued to speak. "Yin Dao, as long as you have my help, you should have a very high chance of becoming the disciple of the Godly Knife sect's sixth disciple. I can guarantee that in terms of resources, there is no one in the entire South County who has more resources than the Godly Knife sect. In this situation, as the disciple of the Godly Knife sect's sixth disciple, you can imagine how much benefits you will get. Yin Dao, I hope you think clearly about what to choose." Hearing Li Shan's words, Yin Dao was stunned again. As a disciple of the godly saber sect, he naturally knew that Li Mingshan's words were not false. The godly saber sect had a lot of resources, and the people who could get the most resources were, of course, the disciples of the godly saber sect's patriarch. As the sixth disciple of the godly saber sect's patriarch, they would definitely get more benefits. There was one more thing that Yin Dao was sure of. Although the Wu clan was powerful, they were still far from the godly blade sect. Although they had a lot of resources, they were definitely incomparable to the godly blade sect. Most importantly, compared to the important figures of the Wu family, the important figures of the godly saber sect were of a higher level in the eyes of everyone in South County. Thinking up to this point, Silver Knife turned his head to look at Li Shan and quickly asked, "Lord Protector, if it weren't for that level 25 equipment, would you have supported me to become the sixth disciple of the godly knife sect master?" Hearing Yin Dao's words, Li Shan was stunned for a moment. After reacting, he hesitantly asked, "Yin Dao, what do you mean?" Yin Dao scratched his head embarrassedly. "Lord Protector, if it's possible, I would like to use that level 25 equipment to make a deal with the Wu clan. I would like to exchange it for a higher grade elixir to increase my strength. At that time, I can ask Lord Protector to help me become the sixth disciple of the godly saber sect's patriarch. Wouldn't that be killing two birds with one stone?" Hearing Yin Dao's words, Li Shan's heart trembled. He looked at Yin Dao in disbelief and asked with a trembling voice, "Yin Dao, what did you say? You want to use that level 25 equipment to make a deal with the Wu clan?" Yin Dao nodded. "Lord Protector, Wu Kadi just said that my level 25 equipment can be exchanged for a higher grade elixir. I think what he said is true. That's why I want to make a deal with him." Hearing these words, Wu Kadi was overjoyed. He clapped his hands and shouted, "Yin Dao, good job! You're doing the right thing. This is killing two birds with one stone." Speaking up to this point, Wu Kadi paused for a moment before continuing, "Yin Dao, by doing this, not only can you become the sixth disciple of the godly saber sect's patriarch and lay the foundation for your future, you can also use that level 25 equipment to exchange for a higher grade elixir, increasing your strength to the greatest extent possible. Yin Dao, it must have been hard for you to come up with such a good idea. Yin Dao, I support your idea. Just do it boldly. If anyone opposes it, the Wu clan will not let them off." Haha. Although Yin Dao's suggestion made Wu Ke very happy, Li Shan on the side was somewhat unwilling. He only felt a sudden surge of anger in his heart. He couldn't help but clench his fists. Looking at Yin Dao in front of him, he couldn't help but want to immediately rush up and beat this annoying Yin Dao into a pulp. Li Shan tried so hard to persuade Yin Dao to stay. He even said that he would help him become the sixth disciple of the godly saber sect's patriarch. Why? Could it be that he really liked Yin Dao's super high talent or his hard work? No, it was all because of the level 25 equipment that Shui Lingzi gave him. Li Shan did not allow Yin Dao to leave the godly saber sect because he wanted that level 25 equipment. That was why he was willing to give him all kinds of benefits. He even shamelessly told his niece about it. Why? It was all because of that level 25 equipment. Li Shan had already thought it through. As long as he got that level 25 equipment, he would no longer care about Yin Dao. Even if Yin Dao wanted to leave the godly saber sect, Li Shan would not care. He was just a lowly disciple. Li Shan was not related to him in any way, so why would he sincerely help him? However, after promising so many benefits, this hateful Yin Dao actually dared to say such things. He wanted to give the level 25 equipment to the Wu clan and then help him become the sixth disciple of the godly saber sect's patriarch. Li Shan wanted to grab Yin Dao and ask him, "Why? Why should I help you?" Without that level 25 equipment, What reason would Li Shan have to help him? Could it be that this silver knife really thought that he was a heavenly genius, a character that was hard to come by? Thinking up to here, Li Shan sneered in his heart. He looked at Yin Dao in front of him, and then looked at Wu Kedi, who had a cold smile on his face. His heart suddenly moved, and he immediately had an idea. Li Shan turned his head to look at Yin Dao and nodded with a smile. Yin Dao, you are very smart. You can actually think of a way to kill two birds with one stone. You are really amazing. Chapter 563. Hearing Li Shan's praise, Yin Dao said embarrassedly, "It's all because of Protector's guidance that I thought of a way to get the best of both worlds." Speaking up to here, Yin Dao paused for a moment. His face suddenly had a hint of surprise, and then he continued, "Lord Protector, could it be that you've agreed to my request?" Hearing Yin Dao's question, Li Shan nodded and said earnestly, "Yin Dao, you are a disciple of the Godly Knife sect, and I am the protector of the Godly Knife sect. We are on the same side, so I naturally won't lie to you. I just want to help you wholeheartedly and help you achieve your dreams." Speaking of this, Li Shan paused and then continued, "Yin Dao, although what you are doing is good, it is not the best choice. If you can find a better choice, it will help you greatly in the future." Hearing Li Shan's words, Yin Dao's face showed a trace of doubt. He turned his head to look at Li Shan and asked tentatively, "Protector, do you have a better way?" Li Shan nodded. "Yin Dao, can't you think of one?" Yin Dao shook his head. "I can't think of one. Disciple thinks that the way just now is the best way." Hearing Yin Dao's answer, Li Shan immediately waved his hand and said with a smile, "Yin Dao, how can that be the best way? Think about it carefully. What is your purpose? What do you want? What is the best way for you? Isn't it completely up to you to choose?" Hearing Li Shan's words, Yin Dao scratched his head in distress. After pondering for a while, he shook his head. "I really can't think of one. Please advise me, Protector." Seeing that Yin Dao couldn't think of one, Li Shan slowly said, "Yin Dao, what is your dream?" Hearing Li Shan's words, Yin Dao didn't even think about it before answering. "Of course it is to stand out and become a famous big shot." Li Shan asked again, "Yin Dao, then let me ask you, if you want to become a big shot, what is the first condition?" Yin Dao thought for a while and answered with some uncertainty, "It should be high martial arts, right?" Li Shan nodded. "Yin Dao, you're right. If you want to be a big shot, the first condition is to have high martial arts skills." At this point, Li Shan paused for a moment before continuing, "There is another point, and that is power. For example, the head of the Godly Knife sect or the head of the Wu clan. On one hand, they have high martial arts, and on the other hand, they also have a high status." Speaking of this, Li Mingshan turned to look at Yin Dao and asked with a smile, "Yin Dao, do you understand what I mean?" Yin Dao thought for a while and then nodded. After a while, he shook his head again. "Although I understand a little, I'm still a little confused. Lord Protector, please explain more clearly so that I won't be able to understand." After hearing Yin Dao's words, Li Mingshan nodded and said with a smile, "Okay, then I'll get straight to the point in case you don't understand." Speaking of this, Li Shan paused for a moment before continuing, "Yin Dao, if you want to be a big shot, not only do you have to have high martial arts skills, but you also have to have a high status. If you can become the head of the Godly Knife sect, you will naturally be able to call the wind and summon the rain in the South County and become a big shot. However, Yin Dao, even if you become the disciple of the sixth disciple of the Godly Knife sect, do you have the confidence to become the head of the Godly Knife sect?" After hearing Li Shan's question, Yin Dao immediately shook his head. "I don't know, I really don't know." Speaking of this, Yin Dao paused for a moment before continuing, "I always feel that this is as unreal as a dream. Lord Protector, am I right?" Hearing this, Li Shan nodded. Dao, there are countless disciples in the Godly Knife sect, and there are countless talented people. Even if you become the disciple of the sixth disciple of the Godly Knife sect, you may not be able to stand out among so many disciples. Speaking of this, Li Shan paused for a moment before continuing. What's more, even if you can become the disciple of the sixth disciple of the Godly Knife sect, even if you can stand out among his disciples and become the number one person in his sect, so what? Don't forget, the sixth disciple of the Godly Saber sect's sect master is ranked above him, and there are 5 other senior brothers ranked before him. If the Godly Saber sect's sect master chooses a successor, I'm afraid he should start from eldest senior brother. Speaking up to this point, Li Shan paused for a moment before continuing. You are only a disciple of the Godly Knife sect's lord. Needless to say, even the Godly Knife sect's lord's sixth disciple does not have the confidence to become the Godly Knife sect's lord. Since the sixth disciple of the Godly Knife sect can't become the head of the Godly Knife sect, then how can you have the chance to become the head of the Godly Knife sect? Hearing Li Shan's words, Dao finally understood. After understanding the reason behind it, Dao's face suddenly changed as he asked in a shocked voice. Then isn't it meaningless for me to join the sixth disciple of the Godly Knife sect? Even if I can learn martial arts, I won't be able to become the head of the Godly Knife sect. Li Shan sighed. Dao, this is what I want to say. Even if you join the sixth disciple of the Godly Knife sect, you won't have the chance to fulfill your wish. At this moment, not only did Dao's face become ugly, even his body was slightly trembling as tears flowed down from his eyes. Haha! I didn't think that I would be so useless. Even if Lord Protector helps me become the sixth disciple of the Godly Knife sect, I won't be able to become the head of the Godly Knife sect. Heavens earth, why are you so unfair to me, Dao? Even if I become the sixth disciple of the Godly Knife sect, I won't have the chance to become the head of the Godly Knife sect. Why is this so? Did I, Dao, do something wrong to make you treat me like this? Hearing Dao's cries like a cuckoo crying blood, Li Shan didn't feel heartbroken at all. He only felt that it was ridiculous. On the side, Wu Kedi almost laughed out loud. Dao was silent for a while before he lowered his head to look at Li Shan. He sneered and asked, Lord Protector, since you know everything, why did you lie to me? Tell me, why did you do this? Hearing Dao's question, Li Shan smiled and replied, Dao, you are a disciple of the Godly Knife sect. Naturally, I have to tell you the truth. Speaking up to here, Li Shan's tone paused for a while before he continued. Dao, after listening to my words, you may feel a little resentful and unwilling. But think about it carefully. As long as we work hard, we will eventually find a solution, right? Dao sneered and asked, Lord Protector, don't lie to me. I am just a useless guy. No matter what you say, I can't do it. Please don't say any more. Chapter 564. Seeing that Dao was puzzled, Li Shan sneered in his heart and slowly said, Dao, think about it. Why would this happen in the Godly Knife sect? Speaking up to here, Li Shan did not wait for Dao to answer and continued. The main reason why this happened in the Godly Knife sect is because there are too many people. Because there are too many people, there is a lot of competition. Speaking up to here, Li Shan paused for a moment before continuing. The Wu clan is different. They have too few people, and more importantly, Wu Kudi can make you a disciple of the Wu clan's successor. Dao, think about it. How many disciples can the Wu clan's successor have? Relatively speaking, you will have less competition. In the Godly Knife sect, the Godly Knife sect's patriarch has 6 disciples, and these 6 disciples have taken in a lot of disciples. Think about it, if you compete with hundreds of people or a few people, which one is more beneficial to you? After hearing Li Shan's explanation, Yin Dao's eyes suddenly lit up and said in surprise, "Of course it is more beneficial to compete with a few people." Hearing this, Li Shan nodded with satisfaction. "Yin Dao, now you understand what I mean?" Hearing Li Shan's words, Yin Dao immediately nodded. "I understand. I understand what Lord Protector means." Speaking up to here, Yin Dao paused for a moment before continuing, "Lord Protector wants me to join the Wu clan. This is the most beneficial for me. Am I right?" Hearing Yin Dao's words, Li Shan nodded with satisfaction. "Yin Dao, you are very smart. You can understand these things very quickly." Speaking up to here, Li Shan paused for a moment before continuing, "Yin Dao, as for your equipment, I can make the decision for you. You can exchange it for a good elixir from the Godly Knife sect. This way, as long as your strength increases, you will be more competitive in the Wu clan. Haha. Maybe when I see you in the future, I will have to call you Patriarch." Hearing Li Shan's words, Yin Dao immediately beamed with joy. He hurriedly replied, "If I can really become the head of the Wu clan, I, Yin Dao, will definitely not forget Lord Protector's kindness. At that time, if Lord Protector needs anything, you must tell me. I will definitely let the Wu clan do it for Lord Protector." Just as Yin Dao finished speaking, Wu Kadi's eyes widened in disbelief as he stared at Yin Dao. Yin Dao hadn't even joined the Wu clan yet, but he was already fantasizing about becoming the Wu clan's patriarch. This change shocked Wu Kadi so much that he didn't know what to say. Wu Kadi was so shocked that he couldn't say anything. Silver Knife turned his head to look at him with a face full of joy and said with a smile, "Lord Protector has already given me the best suggestion to join your Wu clan and become the Wu clan's patriarch. I have seriously considered his words, and I feel that they are very reasonable." Speaking up to here, Yin Dao paused for a moment before continuing, "Wu Kadi, I feel that after joining your Wu clan, I will use that level 25 equipment to ask Lord Protector to exchange it for a good elixir to increase my strength." Speaking up to here, Yin Dao paused for a moment. He stepped forward and patted Wu Kadi's shoulder before continuing, "Wu Kadi, as long as I become the Wu clan's patriarch, at that time, I will definitely not treat you unfairly. I hope that during this period of time, you will assist me well so that I can become the Wu clan's patriarch as soon as possible." After hearing Yin Dao's words, Li Shan's heart bloomed with joy. He turned his head to look at Wu Kadi and couldn't help but tease him. "Wu Kadi, since you value Yin Dao's future and his potential so much, Yin Dao has already given you this opportunity to assist him. I hope that you will not waste this opportunity. Help Yin Dao well so that he can become your patriarch as soon as possible." As soon as Li Shan finished speaking, there was a burst of laughter that came from the side. This laughter made Wu Kadi both embarrassed and angry. He fiercely turned his head to glare at Li Shan and sneered, "Li Shan, you are wrong. In my opinion, the person who wants to capture Yin Dao should be you." Speaking up to here, Wu Kadi paused for a moment. He turned his head to look at Yin Dao before continuing, "Brother Yin Dao, what Li Shan said is wrong. He is lying to you. You have been in the South region for so many years. You should know which is stronger, the Godly Sword sect or the Wu clan, right?" Hearing Wu Kadi's question, Yin Dao didn't even think before answering, "Of course the Godly Sword sect is stronger. The Godly Sword sect has countless disciples. In terms of strength in the South region, there is almost no one who can match them. Although I don't know much about the Wu clan's power, I think it can't be compared to the Godly Sword sect." Hearing Yin Dao's answer, Wu Kadi immediately gave him a thumbs up. "Brother Yin Dao, you are indeed wise. How can this kind of thing stop you?" Speaking up to here, Wu Kadi paused for a moment before continuing, "That's right. In terms of power, the Godly Sword sect is the most powerful. It is impossible for the Wu clan to be compared to the Godly Sword sect. Brother Indao, as long as you become the sect master of the Godly Sword sect in the South region, you can be considered the #1 person in the South region. Speaking up to here, Wu Kadi's tone became more serious. Brother Indao, you are the #1 person in the South region. As long as you become the sect master of the Godly Sword sect, no one in the South region doesn't know you. At that time, when everyone in the South region sees you, they will respectfully call you the sect master of the Godly Sword sect. Speaking up to here, Wu Kadi sighed. Although the Wu clan's power is not bad, it can't be compared to the Godly Sword sect. There aren't many disciples in the Wu clan, so their influence in the South region is not great. Even if you can become the sect master of the Wu clan, not many people will know you. With Brother Indao's intelligence, if you only become the sect master of the Wu clan, it would be a waste of your talent. I think the position of sect master of the Godly Sword sect is more suitable for you. After hearing Wu Kadi's words, Indao couldn't help but frown. He pondered for a moment before slowly saying, Wu Kadi, I know about the situation you are talking about, but you also heard what we said just now. The sect master of the Godly Sword sect has a total of 6 disciples, and these 6 disciples have taken in many disciples. In this case, I really have more than 100 competitors. At this point, Indao paused. He hesitated for a moment before continuing, among so many people, I really don't have the confidence to stand out and become the sect master of the Godly Saber sect. That's why I decided to join your Wu clan and become the patriarch of your Wu clan. This is also a helpless move. Hearing Indao's words, Wu Kadi was so angry that his lungs almost exploded. He wanted nothing more than to go up and slap Indao. Chapter 565. Many people dreamed of becoming the Wu clan's patriarch, but in Indao's words, it had become a forced position that could only be taken. Wu Kadi only wanted to see what was in Indao's head. Indao saw that Wu Kadi didn't want to speak and just kept looking at him while gnashing his teeth. Indao felt strange and hurriedly asked, Wu Kadi, what's wrong? Are you injured? Indao paused for a moment before continuing, Wu Kadi, you have to protect yourself well. When I get to the Wu family, I'll need you to give me advice. After hearing Silver Knife's words, Wu Kadi almost spat out a mouthful of saliva. He was so angry that his face and neck turned red. After a while, Wu Kadi, who was gasping for breath, finally calmed down a little. At this time, Li Shan spoke again. Indao, since things have been decided, I don't think Wu Kadi has any objections. Why don't the 2 of you sign a contract? That would be safer. Indao, what do you think? Indao didn't even think about this kind of thing and just waved his hand casually. Okay, since Wu Kadi wants to sign a contract, then I'll sign one with him. I don't want him to worry that I'll forget about him after I become the Wu family's patriarch. Hearing Indao's words, Shui Lingzi, who had been bitterly enduring, couldn't bear it anymore. She first looked up to the sky and laughed a few times before saying, Indao, you're right. We should sign a contract so that they don't believe you. Seeing Shui Lingzi come forward to tease him, Wu Kadi forcefully suppressed his anger and couldn't bear it any longer. He suddenly jumped up into the air. Everyone only heard Wu Kadi's roar and saw Wu Kadi's figure was like a cannonball, carrying an unstoppable chi as he rushed toward Shui Lingzi like a storm. Shui Lingzi didn't expect Wu Kadi to suddenly attack. It was too late for her to dodge, so she had no choice but to fight back. Their fists collided with each other, producing a dull thud. After the thud, Wu Kadi was once again sent flying into the air by the force of the impact. Shui Lingzi had no place to dissipate the force of the punch, and was forced to bend down by the powerful true chi. Her feet sank into the ground, and she barely managed to catch Wu Kadi's punch. After Wu Kadi's punch succeeded, he flipped in the air and his anger didn't diminish. He let out another roar and threw another punch at Shui Lingzi. Seeing this, Shui Lingzi cursed inwardly. Because he was in a panic, he didn't circulate all of his strength to meet Wu Kedi's attack, causing his qi to stagnate. By the time he tried to circulate his qi to meet Wu Kedi's attack, Wu Kedi's fist had already arrived. Seeing this, Fire Spirit could only stomp on the ground and rush towards Wu Kedi like lightning, wanting to save Water Spirit. However, Wu Kedi was so angry that he couldn't think straight. In his eyes, there was only Shui Lingzi and Shui Lingzi's mocking words. Shui Lingzi had just raised her fist when she felt a violent force smash into her shoulder, causing her to lose her balance and tumble backward. Wu Kedi's fist hit Shui Lingzi, but he was still angry and threw out another punch. However, at this time, Fire Spirit's attack had already arrived. Wu Kedi was caught off guard and was hit in the left rib. Wu Kedi was hit by Shui Lingzi's punch and let out a miserable cry as he was sent flying. Shui Lingzi rolled on the ground for 10 meters before stabilizing herself. She felt a sharp pain in her shoulder and her body tumbled. This reaction was too violent. Shui Lingzi opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood onto the ground. Wu Kedi was hit by Fire Spirit's punch and didn't fare much better. After flying for 10 meters, he fell heavily onto the ground. Before he could get up, he spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. Shui Lingzi was only hit in the arm by Wu Kedi, so her injury was relatively light. However, Wu Kedi was hit in the rib by Fire Spirit. This punch almost made him lose his fighting strength temporarily. Seeing Shui Lingzi heavily injured, Fire Spirit's temper was irritable. Seeing this scene, he was so angry that he couldn't restrain his anger. He threw a punch at Wu Kedi and only glanced at Shui Lingzi before roaring and rushing towards Wu Kedi. At this time, a figure suddenly rushed out from behind Wu Kedi and blocked in front of him. Fire Spirit, do you really want to fight? Fire Spirit saw Wu Ketian blocking in front of him and roared again. However, he didn't stop. Instead, he threw out 2 fists towards Wu Ketian. Wu Ketian saw this and sneered. He suddenly waved his dragon head walking stick and formed a ball of light in front of him, blocking Fire Spirit. Seeing Wu Ketian's dragon head walking stick, Fire Spirit wasn't afraid at all. He stared at the ball of light and suddenly roared. His 2 fists turned into a single fist and smashed towards the center of the ball of light. This change happened in a flash. Fire Spirit's fist smashed into Wu Ketian's hand that was holding the dragon head walking stick. The 2 of them were pushed back a few steps by this force before they could stabilize themselves. At this moment, the people around them finally reacted and stood in between the 2 of them. Shadowless shouted, "Let's talk nicely. Why do you have to fight?" Fire Spirit heard this and pointed at Wu Kedi who was lying on the ground. He yelled, "Shadowless, go ask Wu Kedi why he attacked my big brother." Hearing this, Wu Kedi didn't wait for Shadowless to say anything and got up while enduring the pain. He pointed at Water Spirit in the distance and angrily said, "The matter between me and Yin Dao, why are you talking nonsense?" Hearing Wu Kedi's question, Shui Lingzi said angrily, "Wu Kedi, it's already late and you're still dilly-dallying. Who has time to wait for you?" Wu Kedi sneered, "Shui Lingzi, if you don't have time, you can leave first. No one is stopping you." After hearing Wu Kedi's words, Shui Lingzi suddenly laughed. "Wu Kedi, you said it yourself." Speaking up to here, Shui Lingzi paused for a moment before continuing, "You all heard Wu Kedi's words. Now, I declare that all the conditions I agreed to are null and void. I won't be taking the 7 skills sex people away." Hearing Shui Lingzi's words, everyone was shocked. Shadowless hurriedly asked, "Shui Lingzi, what are you doing? You already promised us, why are you going back on your word?" Hearing Shadowless' question, Shui Lingzi sneered and wiped the stain from the corner of her mouth before extending her hand in front of Shadowless. "Shadowless, did you see that? I clearly agreed to your conditions, but in the end, I was still heavily injured by this Wu Kedi. So, I've decided to give up." Chapter 566. After hearing Water Spirit's words, Wu Kedi reluctantly stood up and angrily said, "Water Spirit, even if I don't take your equipment today, I'll still settle this with you." Water Spirit heard this and sneered. "All right then, I won't give you any equipment. I'll wait for you to settle this with me." After hearing the two arguing, Li Mingshan and Shadowless gave each other a look, and quickly went up to stop the fight. Shadowless pulled Water Spirit and whispered, "Water Spirit, this matter is about to be settled. Why are you going back on your words?" Water Spirit sneered, "It's not that I want to go back on my words, but Wu Kedi went too far. I can't take this lying down." After hearing Shui Lingzi's words, Shadowless sighed and said, "Shui Lingzi, why did you come here today? Are you here to get angry with Wu Kedi?" Water Spirit heard this and gritted her teeth. "Shadowless, I understand what you mean, but I can't take this lying down." Shadowless shook his head. "No matter what you do, it won't be so smooth. For this mission, I think you should let Wu Kedi go this time." Water Spirit snorted and turned to look at Wu Kedi. "I'll let him go this time, but only if he apologizes to me." After hearing Shui Lingzi's words, Shadowless was stunned for a moment before he bitterly smiled and said, "Shui Lingzi, your request seems a bit difficult. It's not like you don't know what kind of person Wu Kedi is. Even if he was wrong, he would never admit it." Water Spirit sneered, "Since he won't admit it, then let's forget about today's matter. I'll admit that I was unlucky about Kikiaman's matter. Wu Kedi can forget about getting my equipment. Let's go our separate ways." Shadowless heard this and became anxious. "Water Spirit, how can you do this? We already agreed on this matter. How can you go back on your words?" Shadowless paused for a bit before continuing. "Water Spirit, if you give up on this mission, I'm afraid you won't be able to do anything when you go back. In my opinion, we should prioritize peace and settle this matter perfectly. This is the best way, and we shouldn't go our separate ways." Hearing this, Shui Lingzi turned to look at Shadowless and coldly said, "Shadowless, you saw it just now. Wu Kedi didn't even greet me before suddenly attacking me. If I didn't dodge fast enough, I'm afraid I wouldn't have survived that attack. Now that I think about it, I'm still scared. He really wanted to kill me." Wu Kedi's attack was clearly seen by Shadowless. Wu Kedi's attack was indeed a surprise attack. Not only that, but his moves were also very sharp. If it was an ordinary person, they would have been killed by this move. Hearing Shui Lingzi's question, Shadowless was speechless and turned to look at Wu Kedi. On the other side, Li Mingshan and Wu Kedi were also discussing this matter. "Wu Kedi, what are you thinking? We're about to get the equipment and it's all your fault. If you didn't go crazy and attack Shui Lingzi, things wouldn't be this bad." Hearing this, Wu Kedi sneered, "Li Mingshan, you don't need to scold me. It's not like you didn't sneak attack Shui Lingzi. What right do you have to scold me?" Hearing this, Li Mingshan angrily said, "That's not the same. I know when to stop, I'm not as reckless as you." Hearing this, Wu Kedi turned to Li Mingshan and sneered, "Reckless? You said I'm reckless? Li Mingshan, I saw that you weren't slow either. How can you say I'm reckless now? Do you think I didn't see that when you attacked, if Shui Lingzi wasn't prepared, she would have already been killed by you? How can you say I'm reckless?" Hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Mingshan gritted his teeth and took a deep breath before slowly saying, "Wu Kedi, no matter what we did just now, we won't mention it again." Speaking up to here, Li Mingshan paused for a bit before continuing, "From now on, none of us can sneak attack Shui Lingzi. We need to get the equipment as soon as possible." Hearing this, Wu Kedi suddenly sighed, "Li Mingshan, you think I don't want to? But things have already come to this point, what can I do?" Speaking up to here, Wu Kedi turned to look at Li Mingshan. After pondering for a moment, he slowly said, "Li Mingshan, there are no outsiders here, so I'll be frank. I'll use 2 pieces of level 20 equipment to exchange for that level 25 equipment of Yin Dao. What do you think?" Hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Mingshan froze for a moment. After reacting, he immediately shook his head and flatly refused. No, I definitely won't agree. Speaking up to here, Li Mingshan paused for a bit. He turned to look at Wu Kedi and suddenly sneered before continuing, Wu Kedi, if you're willing, I also want to use 2 pieces of level 20 equipment to exchange for your level 25 equipment. I don't know if you'll agree or not. Hearing this, Wu Kedi pondered for a moment before slowly saying, Li Mingshan, I know this is very unfair to you. Just tell me, if I want that level 25 equipment, what kind of price do I have to pay? Then you can give it to me. Hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Mingshan sneered in his heart. You want to exchange for my level 25 equipment? You're dreaming. After being in Jianghu for so many years, Li Mingshan could count the number of times he had seen level 25 equipment. Not to mention, this level 25 equipment was about to become his. Li Mingshan felt a burst of excitement when he thought of this. Li Mingshan took a deep breath and forcefully suppressed his somewhat chaotic emotions. He slowly shook his head. Wu Kedi, you also know how high level 25 equipment is. If it were you, would you exchange it with someone else? Hearing this, Wu Kedi shook his head. I wouldn't. I would wear this level 25 equipment every day. Even at night, I wouldn't take it off. Hearing Wu Kedi's answer, Li Mingshan once again sneered. Wu Kedi, you think so too? Don't tell me you think I wouldn't do that. Hearing this, Wu Kedi shook his head and suddenly sighed. Water Spirit, the 2 of us aren't silver knives. We have our own thoughts, and we also have a sense of safety. We should know how to protect ourselves. At this point, Wu Kedi paused for a moment before continuing. But if the 2 of us really have this level 25 equipment, will it really be able to protect both of us? Hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Mingshan's expression suddenly changed. He asked in a low voice, Wu Kedi, what do you mean by that? Wu Kedi shook his head. Li Mingshan, I don't mean anything. I just want to tell you that even if we have this level 25 equipment, I'm afraid it won't give us a sense of safety. Chapter 567. Wu Kedi sighed and continued, This level 25 equipment with super strong defense doesn't seem to be able to bring us safety. Instead, it'll bring us danger. Wu Kedi paused for a moment before continuing, Li Mingshan, our martial arts can barely be considered average in the South County. There are many people whose martial arts are above us. Think about it, if we have this level 25 equipment, we'll be in a lot of trouble. At this point, Wu Kedi sighed again. There are many experts who are more powerful than us. If they really want to snatch this equipment, I'm afraid it won't be long before news of us being killed spread in the underworld. Li Mingshan, think about it. Is it worth it for us to do all this for this equipment? After hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Mingshan couldn't help but frown. He had to admit that what Wu Kedi said was true. Although the defense of a level 25 equipment was very strong, if someone with their level of martial arts were to wear this equipment, there would be many people who would be jealous. When that time came, it would only be a matter of time before the equipment was stolen. If they were lucky, they would only be robbed of the equipment. If they were unlucky, it wouldn't be as simple as just the equipment. They might even lose their lives. This was the truth. When the opponent stole the equipment, in order to hide their tracks and prevent others from finding out that they were the ones who stole the equipment, they would definitely kill the person who had the equipment to hide their tracks. It wasn't that Li Mingshan hadn't considered this before. However, the level 25 equipment was about to be in his hand. At this moment, he was only thinking about the benefits of the level 25 equipment. He automatically ignored the disadvantages of the level 25 equipment. Now that he was reminded by Wu Kedi, this thought immediately surged from the bottom of his heart and filled his mind in an instant. At this moment, Li Mingshan's mind was filled with thoughts of how much danger he would be in after obtaining the level 25 equipment. After a while, Li Mingshan took a deep breath and completely dispelled this thought. He then looked up at Wu Kedi and slowly said, "Wu Kedi, you're right. Wu Kedi, you're right. Possessing this level 25 equipment might bring about a disaster. However, if there's no chance to obtain level 25 equipment, it's fine. But if there's a chance to obtain level 25 equipment, I think everyone will want to try to obtain it." Hearing this, Wu Kedi sighed. "Li Mingshan, it is because of your thoughts that there are always those inhumane things happening in the underworld. You should wake up. This equipment will not bring you any good. I can guarantee that it will only bring you disaster. Just give it up." After hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Mingshan pondered for a moment before suddenly asking, "Wu Kedi, I admit that you're right. However, since our martial arts are similar and our status in the South County is similar, can you keep this level 25 equipment if I can't?" Wu Kedi shook his head with a bitter smile. "Li Mingshan, you're right. The two of us are about the same. In the South County, whether it's martial arts or status, we're about the same. It's a bad thing for you to get this level 25 equipment, and it's not a good thing for me to get this level 25 equipment either." After hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Mingshan was stunned. He asked in confusion, "Wu Kedi, if you know that it will bring you disaster, why do you still want this level 25 equipment?" Wu Kedi shook his head. "Even if you agree to give it to me, I won't wear it." After saying this, Wu Kedi paused for a moment before continuing, "Li Mingshan, I can tell you the truth. I want to use this level 25 equipment to exchange for something better." After hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Mingshan suddenly sneered. "Wu Kedi, if that's the case, you've gotten a great deal. You've earned this equipment from me and then sold it to someone else for more benefit. Isn't that a bit disloyal?" Wu Kedi shook his head. "Li Mingshan, you're wrong. No matter what I do, I'm not sure what equipment I'll be able to exchange for, but you can get what you want. Isn't that good?" After hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Mingshan shook his head. "Wu Kedi, can't I do something like this myself?" Wu Kedi shook his head. "Li Mingshan, I admit that your godly sword sect is powerful, but you don't necessarily have good information. You might not know what I know, so even if you want to exchange it for something, I'm afraid that this equipment won't be of much use in your hands." After hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Mingshan was suddenly tempted. At this point, Li Mingshan suddenly realized that he couldn't keep this equipment in his hands. Otherwise, it might bring him disaster. The key was whether or not it was reliable to give this equipment to Wu Kedi. Thinking of this, Li Mingshan raised his head and looked at Wu Kedi. He smiled and asked, "Wu Kedi, this equipment is very precious. You and I both know this. The key is, what can you give me in exchange?" After hearing this, Wu Kedi nodded. "I just said that I'll exchange those two level 20 equipment for your level 25 equipment. What do you think?" Li Mingshan shook his head. "Nothing. I'm at a disadvantage. You should change your conditions." After hearing this, Wu Kedi thought for a moment before slowly saying, "Li Mingshan, how about this? I'll add a sword in exchange. What do you think?" After hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Mingshan was suddenly interested. He hurriedly asked, "Wu Kedi, what sword?" Wu Kedi smiled and said, "I don't know what it's called. This is a sword I picked up. I saw that it was unusually sharp, so I kept it. If you like it, I can give it to you." After hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Mingshan hurriedly asked again, "Wu Kedi, have you tried it? What level is this sword?" After hearing Li Mingshan's words, Wu Kedi was stunned for a moment. He then shook his head. "I don't know, but I think it should be above level 10. Above level 10. After hearing this, Li Mingshan repeated this sentence. He then shook his head in disappointment. Wu Kedi's words were vague, and he didn't accurately state the level of the saber. Above level 10. There were many meanings in this. A level 19 equipment could be above level 10. A level 11 equipment could be above level 10. If Wu Kedi said that the equipment was level 19, then Li Mingshan wouldn't hesitate to give it to him. Don't underestimate a level 19 sword. It was probably more useful than a level 20 equipment. Chapter 568. Li Shan looked up at Wu Kedi and asked with a smile, Wu Kedi, can you be more specific? What level is that saber of yours? After hearing Li Mingshan's words, Wu Kedi shook his head. I don't know, but it should be level 15 or 16. After hearing Wu Kedi's words, Li Mingshan shook his head. Your saber's level is too low. If I trade with you, wouldn't I lose out? Wu Kedi shook his head. Li Shan, how could you lose out? Don't forget, there are still the 2 level 20 equipment. Li Shan shook his head. No, I'm losing out. If you can use a level 19 or 20 sword, we can trade, but a level 15 or 16 sword, I definitely won't trade. At this moment, Shadowless walked up to Silver Sword and said with a smile, Brother Silver Sword, why don't you trade your level 25 equipment with me? Shadowless paused for a moment before continuing, Brother Silver Sword, what do you want to trade? Just tell me and I'll find a way to fulfill your conditions. Hearing Shadowless's question, Silver Knife shook his head. I've already prepared to exchange my level 25 equipment with our Lord Protector for a spiritual medicine to increase my strength. Shadowless nodded. So you need a spiritual medicine. That's fine, I can do it for you. Brother Silver Sword, I can find the best spiritual medicine for you. Shadowless paused for a moment and moved closer to Silver Sword, lowering his voice. Brother Silver Sword, don't worry. The spiritual medicine I can find for you will definitely be much better than what they gave you. Hearing Shadowless's words, Yin Dao's eyes lit up. Really? Can you really find a better elixir? Shadowless nodded, of course. You don't have to doubt this. If you don't believe me, you can trade with me and you'll understand. Hearing Shadowless's words, Silver Blade nodded in agreement. Although Wu Kedi and Li Shan said they would find him a good spiritual medicine, Silver Sword didn't know what kind of spiritual medicine it was. Thinking of this, Silver Sword looked up at Li Shan and asked loudly, Lord Protector, what kind of spiritual medicine can you trade for my equipment? Li Shan, who was negotiating with Wu Kedi, suddenly heard Silver Knife's question and couldn't help but be stunned. Then, he turned his head to look at Shadowless and felt a little annoyed. Li Shan was sure that Silver Sword's question had something to do with Shadowless. Seeing that Li Shan didn't answer him, Silver Sword asked again, Lord Protector, I want to know, what kind of spiritual medicine can you trade for my level 25 equipment? Hearing Yin Dao's second question, Li Shan immediately smiled. Yin Dao, what's wrong? You don't even believe in Lord Protector? At this point, Li Shan paused and quickly thought about it before continuing. Yin Dao, don't worry. You are a disciple of our Godly Knife sect. No matter what, our Godly Knife sect will not treat you unfairly. Hearing Li Mingshan's reply, Silver Knife was stunned for a moment. He then asked again, Lord Protector, Shadowless said that he would give me better spiritual herbs in exchange for my level 25 equipment. I want to use your spiritual herbs to compare with his spiritual herbs. Let's see whose spiritual herbs are of higher quality, and I'll give the equipment to him. Hearing Silver Knife's words, Li Shan was furious. He cursed Shadowless for being shameless in his heart, but there was nothing he could do. He could only force a smile. Yin Dao, why would you listen to Shadowless? Don't forget that you're a disciple of the Godly Blade sect. Is the Godly Blade sect inferior to Shadowless? After hearing Li Mingshan's words, Yin Dao shook his head. Lord Protector, you'd better tell me. Otherwise, I'll be a bit worried. Seeing that Yin Dao's eyes were already a bit scattered, Li Mingshan knew that Yin Dao's mind was already somewhat abnormal. If Yin Dao was normal, he would definitely not say such words. Thinking of this, Li Mingshan thought for a moment, then slowly said, "Yin Dao, since you want to know, then I'll tell you." Speaking up to this point, Li Mingshan paused for a moment, then continued, "Yin Dao, if you're willing, we can use the strength-increasing pill that our sect has meticulously refined to exchange for your level 25 equipment. What do you think?" Hearing Li Mingshan's words, Yin Dao's eyes suddenly lit up. As a disciple of the Godly Blade sect, Yin Dao had naturally heard of the name Strength-Increasing Pill. Strength-Increasing Pill, as long as it was consumed, it would increase the user's strength for 3 days. Of course, strength-increasing pills were divided into different grades, from level 1 to level 5. Level 1 strength-increasing pill could increase the user's strength by 5 years. Level 2 strength-increasing pill could increase the user's strength by 10 years. Level X strength-increasing pill could increase the user's strength by 15 years. Level 4 strength-increasing pill could increase the user's strength by 20 years. Level 5 strength-increasing pill could increase the user's strength by 25 years. The 5 types of strength-increasing pills had different effects, so naturally, the quality was also different. Level 1 strength-increasing pill was the most common and also the most used. Level 2 strength-increasing pills were restricted. Even the talented disciples of the Godly Blade sect, who were able to receive the Godly Blade sect's special training, were only given level 1 strength-increasing pills. If one wanted to obtain a level 2 strength-increasing pill, one would not be able to obtain it without a great contribution, or with a heaven-defying talent. Especially the level 5 strength-increasing pill, it could be said that in the entire Godly Blade sect, there was only one. In the Godly Blade sect, a small figure like Yin Dao had only heard of strength-increasing pills, and as for using them, he had only heard of it from others. After hearing Li Mingshan's words, Yin Dao's heart was suddenly filled with joy, and he quickly asked, "Lord Protector, is it true? Can you really give me a strength-increasing pill?" Li Mingshan smiled and nodded. "Yin Dao, don't worry, after hearing about your level 25 equipment, I will definitely give you a strength-increasing pill." "One strength-increasing pill?" After hearing Li Mingshan's words, Yin Dao's eyes quickly dimmed, and the smile on his face also disappeared. After a while, he glared at Li Mingshan and said with some annoyance, "Lord Protector, why is there only one strength-increasing pill?" Hearing Yin Dao's question, Li Mingshan was somewhat unhappy, but he could only force a smile and said, "Yin Dao, you have been in the Godly Blade sect for so long, don't you know how precious a strength-increasing pill is? How can there be so many of such precious items? To be able to exchange for one strength-increasing pill for you is already a very difficult matter." Speaking up to this point, Li Mingshan's tone paused, and then he continued, "Yin Dao, as a disciple of the Godly Blade sect, you should know that being able to exchange for one strength-increasing pill is already very good. As a person, one must be content and grateful. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.